हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम बैक टू माय चैनल। तो आज मैं इसका नेक्स्ट पार्ट लेके आ चुका हूँ गाइस। तो चलिए स्टार्ट करते हैं।
Chapter 275 Protector Wu. What kind of monster is this? On the way to the gate of life and death, Xiao Yixian began to get to know Shui Binger, while Qilin and Yun Yun, who were walking in the lead, had little to say to each other. Yun Yun was not a naturally eloquent person, and even though Qilin had displayed terrifying strength, she had no intention of currying favor with him. As for Qilin, his interest in Yun Yun was mostly just curiosity about a special supporting character from the original story. After all, in terms of beauty and temperament, the other women were no less inferior to her. A few of them, like Xiao Yixian, could even completely overshadow her in every aspect. Along the way, the few conversations they had were mostly Yun Yun introducing the background information of the Gate of Life and Death to Qilin. Since she had already decided to let Qilin in, there was no harm in doing him another favor. It is rumored that the Gate of Life and Death has existed since the founding of our Cloud Mist sect, and it was eventually discovered by our sect's founding ancestral master, Yun Podian. The reason it is so miraculous, and even designated as a forbidden land by our sect, is because there is a special space within the Gate of Life and Death. The energy in this space is exceptionally dense, but it is also fraught with danger. Without the strength of a Dowang, one is very likely to die inside, which is why we named it the Gate of Life and Death. Of course, as long as one can make it out of the Gate of Life and Death, their strength will increase significantly. When I first entered the Gate of Life and Death, I was only a 1-star Dowang, but after I made it out, my strength had already reached the Dohuang level. Upon hearing this, Qilin asked curiously, since the Gate of Life and Death can increase one's strength, why don't you let the Dowang elders of the sect go in and try? If those elders become stronger, wouldn't that also enhance the strength of the Cloud Mist sect? Yun Yun shook her head and continued to explain, it is not the same. The Gate of Life and Death is not that simple, it seems to possess a certain sentience, and only those recognized by the Gate of Life and Death have a chance to enter it. At this point, Yun Yun paused slightly and added, of course, I believe that with your excellency Qilin's talent, gaining the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death will be effortless. As for others, a look of hesitation appeared on Yun Yun's face, as she clearly did not think that everyone else could be recognized by the Gate of Life and Death. Qilin waved his hand dismissively, it doesn't matter. Just lead us there. As for how to enter the Gate of Life and Death, that is our own business. Yun Yun nodded upon hearing this. Halfway there, Qilin suddenly stopped in his tracks. What is it? Seeing this, everyone turned their gazes toward him. Qilin chuckled, scanned his surroundings, and locked his gaze onto a specific direction. Friend, have you spied enough? Upon hearing this, everyone's eyes narrowed as they followed Qilin's gaze. Who? Yun Yun was startled. Even looking in the direction of Qilin's gaze, she still could not see anything unusual, which meant that the person spying in the dark likely had strength even higher than hers. And here in the Cloud Mist sect, besides Qilin, who else could have strength higher than hers? Could it be her teacher? Wasn't her teacher in closed-door cultivation? Had he achieved a breakthrough to Dozong and come out? Just as Yun Yun's thoughts were drifting, a strange laugh suddenly rang out from the distance. Jia Jia. Interesting, I didn't expect that in this remote northwest continent, someone like you could appear. You are so young, yet even I, this protector, cannot see through you. While the voice was still echoing, a figure wearing a black robe, with their face shrouded in shadow, appeared within everyone's line of sight. He walked out from the direction where Qilin had been looking, stepping on the void realm, his whole body radiating a powerful aura. The moment Yun Yun saw the black-robed man, her pupils constricted sharply. It was not her teacher. Who was he? Stepping on the void realm, why would such a Dozong suddenly appear at the Cloud Mist sect, and why was she, the sect master of the Cloud Mist sect, completely unaware? Yun Yun had many doubts in her heart, and her expression became even more solemn. The women beside Qilin also noticed the black-robed man, but apart from their initial surprise, they immediately regained their composure. What if he is a Dozong? Big sister Xiao Yixian is also a Dozong, and brother Qilin, teacher Qilin, is even a Dozun. Qilin was also observing Protector Wu with great interest. This guy played an extremely important role in the original story of Battle Through the Heavens. In particular, Protector Wu was the only protector in the Hall of Souls in the original story who actually completed his mission. After all, aside from searching for the ancient jade, his mission was to capture Yao Lao, and it could be said that he did indeed capture Yao Lao. Just as Qilin was observing Protector Wu, his gaze also caused Protector Wu under the black robe to frown, feeling a bit displeased. This guy, is he treating me like a monkey in a zoo? At this thought, a dangerous look flashed in Protector Wu's eyes as he looked at Qilin. A moment later, Protector Wu took a deep breath and regained his composure, saying, you don't seem to be afraid of me. Do you know who I am? Aren't you just a soul hall protector? Why should I be afraid of you? Qilin spread his hands. Protector Wu was slightly stunned. He did not expect Qilin to recognize his identity. Since you know my identity and yet still show not even a shred of fear, kid, which force in the Central Plains are you a descendant of? Are you from the Pill Tower, or one of the two sects? Interesting, you were spying on us in the dark just now, and I haven't even held you accountable yet here you are, the first to inquire about my information. Qilin chuckled. As the last syllable fell, he slowly extended a palm and suddenly flipped it downward. In an instant, a surging and overwhelming aura, like a sleeping dragon suddenly awakening, spread out from his body. Get down here, Qilin shouted loudly. The next second, an invisible pressure instantly descended onto Protector Wu's head. With a boom, Protector Wu was immediately smashed from midair onto the ground, and countless dirt and stone debris erupted into the sky. Everyone was watching this scene in shock, especially Yun Yun, who was shocked beyond measure. She had originally thought that since Qilin could suppress Yunling with just a glance, his strength was definitely not that of an ordinary Dozong. But now, she did not expect that even this mysterious Dozong would be reduced to such a sorry state by a single shout from Qilin. To what level had his strength reached? Could it be a Dozun? How is that possible? And besides Yun Yun, there was someone even more shocked than her. That was Protector Wu, who was now lying in a deep pit, splayed out like a dead dog. Protector Wu looked extremely disheveled, his black robe torn to pieces, and his whole body covered in blood. At this moment, his brain was buzzing, and the bones all over his body felt as if they had been shattered, radiating an incomparable, intense pain. He did not understand how he, a dignified Dozong, could not even withstand a single wave of pressure from this young man before him. Even an Elder Zune in the Hall of Souls might not be able to do this, right? What kind of monster is this kid? There is another chapter today, currently being updated. Chapter 276, Administering Punishment on Behalf of Heaven, Yun Yun's Shock. Inside the deep pit, although Protector Wu had suffered heavy injuries, his consciousness remained incredibly clear. He knew very well that if he did not take some measures, the young man before him would truly be capable of killing him. Even if he wanted to settle the score and take revenge later, he had to survive first. Thinking of this, Protector Wu immediately softened his stance and said, young friend, I hope you will show mercy. Just now, this old man really did not mean to spy on you. It is just that I have reached an agreement with the old sect master of the Cloud Mist sect to protect him during his breakthrough to Dozong, so I was being extra vigilant around his place of seclusion, which is why I happened to see you. This old man is willing to swear to the heavens that I absolutely had no malicious intent toward you just now. Of course, this was a lie. Initially, Protector Wu had indeed noticed them because Qilin and his group were passing by. However, after being called out by Qilin, he keenly sensed that Qilin was not simple and thus developed other intentions toward him. If he could turn Qilin into someone like Yunshan, that would naturally be best. If Qilin was unwilling to cooperate, he would not mind adding the soul of another genius powerhouse to the Hall of Souls. However, although he had overestimated Qilin as much as possible, even viewing him as a powerhouse on the same level as himself. Unfortunately, Protector Wu had still not overestimated him enough. Qilin's strength had long since exceeded his imagination. Before Qilin could speak, Yun Yun was the first to lose her composure. Her gaze was sharp yet carried a hint of nervousness as she swept it toward Protector Wu. What kind of agreement did you reach with my teacher? Intuition told Yun Yun that the black-robed man before her, who had been suppressed by a single wave of pressure from Qilin, was likely not a kind soul. Yet her teacher had secretly reached an agreement with this person, and she did not even know about it. This caused a trace of unease to arise in Yun Yun's heart, feeling that her teacher was negotiating with a tiger for its skin. Haha, what kind of agreement could it be? Naturally, it is to help him achieve the breakthrough to Dozong that he has dreamed of. Protector Wu feared Qilin, but he did not fear Yun Yun. Yun Yun's gaze narrowed. We are neither related nor friends. Why would you help my teacher achieve a breakthrough to Dozong, and what is the price? The price? Haha, it is nothing more than having him follow my orders. Compared to a breakthrough to Dozong, this is merely an insignificant price. Of course, Protector Wu would naturally not tell the truth. For example, once Yunshan achieved a breakthrough to Dozong with his help, his life and death would be within the Protector's single thought. Just that. Upon hearing this, Yun Yun was half believing and half doubting. She felt it was not that simple, but she could not put her finger on what was wrong. At this moment, Qilin said casually, I have heard that some of the methods used by the Hall of Souls target the soul. As soon as these words were spoken, a sharp glint flashed in Yun Yun's eyes. It seemed that her teacher's soul had likely been tampered with by this person. In this way, even if her teacher achieved a breakthrough to Dozong, he would only be able to obediently submit to this person's control. Thinking of this, the expression on Yun Yun's face instantly became incredibly sharp, and the thought of forcing this person to remove the methods used on her teacher arose. However, after all, this person had been suppressed by Qilin, so how to handle him was naturally up to Qilin. Having been the sect master for so many years, she still understood this basic rule. Seeing Qilin expose the methods of the Hall of Souls to Yun Yun, Protector Wu's expression stiffened slightly. However, now that his life was still in Qilin's hands, he naturally dared not harbor any resentment toward Qilin, and only forced a laugh, saying, young friend, I have already said everything that should be said. I wonder if you can let me go this time. Qilin pondered for a moment, then said, theoretically, yes, but I do not like people who deceive me. For instance, you just swore to the heavens that you had no malicious intent toward me, but I seem to sense that you are lying. Since that is the case, I shall administer punishment on behalf of heaven and judge your crimes. The first finger is to punish you for the crime of deceiving heaven. After speaking, Qilin pointed a finger, and a brilliant golden light instantly erupted from his fingertip, piercing through Protector Wu's dantian. The next second, the aura on his body was like a deflating balloon, rapidly withering, and in the blink of an eye, he was left with only the strength of Doji Chi. Ah, my strength. You actually crippled my strength. Protector Wu's eyes were wide with rage and turned crimson. He had not expected that Qilin would not give the slightest face to the Hall of Souls behind him. Now, the only thing he was grateful for was that he had at least saved his life. As long as he could safely return to the Hall of Souls, he could still spend a great price to have an Elder Zune help him recover from his injuries. However, before he could continue to be grateful, Qilin had already pointed out his second finger. The second finger is my personal punishment for your harboring malicious intent toward me. Swoosh. The next second, Protector Wu's spirit power also instantly withered away. One must know that the Hall of Souls is most skilled at spirit power. If the spirit power is also damaged, then given the cruelty within the Hall of Souls, even if Protector Wu could luckily survive and return to the Hall of Souls, I fear only a dead end would await him. The Hall of Souls Elder Zune would not spend a great price to cure him, a cripple. You are so vicious. Protector Wu gritted his teeth and roared, his tone radiating an aura of violence. But Qilin could not even be bothered to look at him again, saying casually, I will leave him to you to deal with. Whether you kill him or slice him up, handle it as you see fit. After speaking, Qilin continued to walk forward. This sentence was clearly spoken to Yun Yun. After hearing this, a look of pleasant surprise immediately appeared on Yun Yun's face, and she hurriedly bowed to thank Qilin's back. Thank you, Your Excellency Qilin, for your generosity. After speaking, she directly reached out and grabbed, and Protector Wu was seized in her hand. However, she did not forget her main business, instead leading Qilin and his group to a stone cave. At the entrance of the stone cave, a stone door that looked ancient and heavy stood tall, appearing weathered and long-standing. And on the stone door, 3 large, flamboyant characters were engraved. Gate of Life and Death. Yun looked at the stone door in the distance and said in a deep voice, "Your Excellency Qilin, this is the forbidden land of my Cloud Mist sect, the Gate of Life and Death. Next, you only need to reach out one by one and touch the stone wall of the Gate of Life and Death. If you can be chosen by the Gate of Life and Death, there will naturally be a special phenomenon." Is that so? Qilin nodded, and before he could speak, Shui Yuer beside him could no longer sit still. In a few steps, she walked to the Gate of Life and Death and reached out to touch it. Seeing this, Yun shook her head and smiled. Wanting to obtain the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death is not that simple. Throughout my Cloud Mist sect, only Yanran and I have obtained the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death. However, before Yun's voice had even faded, the stone door in the distance suddenly shone brilliantly, releasing countless cyan rays of light. Shui Yuer's face was filled with excitement as she turned to look at everyone. Ha ha ha, I succeeded, I succeeded. The expression on Yun's face was also stunned, and she flashed a look of astonishment as she looked at Shui Yuer. She had not expected that she would actually succeed. And the things that shocked her had only just begun. She saw the rest of the women from the Tianshui girl group also rushing to the stone door. Little Yuer, move aside, let us try too. Following closely behind, cyan light bloomed one after another from the stone door. The members of the Tianshui girl group and Xiao Yixian had, without exception, all obtained the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death. As the sect master of the Cloud Mist sect, Yun was completely dumbfounded. Was this still the Gate of Life and Death in her memory? Chapter 277, Gate of Life and Death Test, 27-story stone tower combined. Qilin saw the scene and smiled slightly, not feeling surprised. After all the women had left their names on the marriage record of the flowers and were protected by luck. In other words, if each of them were placed in other worlds, they could all be considered existences akin to daughters of luck. Wasn't it normal for them to be recognized by the Gate of Life and Death? Watching the overjoyed women, Yun felt a complex mix of emotions in her heart. Especially when she thought about how in the vast Cloud Mist sect, only she and Nal and Yanran had gained the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death, yet Qilin and all the women he brought were selected without exception. It was as if the Gate of Life and Death didn't belong to the Cloud Mist sect, but to Qilin. But Yun quickly adjusted. Since Qilin and all the women had already gained the recognition of the Gate of Life and Death, she might as well be gracious about it, which could also earn Qilin's favor for the Cloud Mist sect. Thus, Yun immediately smiled and offered her congratulations. Congratulations to your Excellency Qilin. In the past few decades, the Gate of Life and Death has only recognized me and my mediocre disciple. Yet now, it has recognized so many people at once. It is sufficient to see that you are all blessed with deep fortune and exceptional talent. Qilin laughed and teased. I haven't even gone up to test yet. Is sect leader Yun already concluding that I can also be recognized by the Gate of Life and Death? Hearing this, Yun realized that Qilin hadn't tested yet. However, she quickly said, with your Excellency Qilin's abilities, if you were not recognized by the Gate of Life and Death, I would have to suspect that something was wrong with the Gate of Life and Death itself. When she said this, the expression on Yun's face was very serious. It was clear she felt this from the bottom of her heart. Qilin waved his hand lazily. You overpraise me. I just have a bit more luck than you all. After speaking, Qilin walked forward and placed a hand on the stone door of the Gate of Life and Death. Boom. In an instant, the entire mountain shook slightly, and the Gate of Life and Death erupted with an unprecedented, brilliant cyan light. What is going on? Yun was stunned at first, then looked at the Gate of Life and Death with suspicion and uncertainty. Such a phenomenon was unheard of. It had never happened since the establishment of the Cloud Mist sect. Shui Yuer clapped and cheered, as expected of brother Qilin. Everything he does is extraordinary. It seems this so-called Gate of Life and Death has some discernment after all. Shui Binger and the other women also chuckled, seeming to think this was just a perfectly normal, trivial matter. Meanwhile, in a secret chamber near the Gate of Life and Death at the back of the Cloud Mist sect, a figure exuding an ancient aura sat cross-legged on a cushion in the center. This person wore a simple white robe and did not look very old. There was not a single wrinkle on his face, yet his long hair was snow white. And this person's identity was none other than the previous sect master of the Cloud Mist sect, Yun Shan. Just as the mountain shook, Yun Shan, who had been sitting cross-legged on the cushion with his eyes tightly closed, suddenly opened them, and a sharp glint shot out from his eyes. What is going on? Why did the mountain suddenly shake? Could some change have occurred? And, where did Protector Wu go? Could he have left? Yun Shan sensed carefully, but did not perceive the presence of Protector Wu nearby. A moment later, he noticed the anomaly. No, Protector Wu has not left, but his aura. It has become weaker. Suddenly, Yun Shan sensed an incomparably familiar and weak aura within the Cloud Mist sect. Moreover, this aura was following his disciple, Yun. Compared to the aura fluctuations overflowing from Yun, who was at the Dohuang realm, Protector Wu's aura was like a firefly compared to the bright moon. What was going on? Yun Shan was filled with immense doubt. Besides the auras of Protector Wu and Yun Shan also detected many other auras. These auras were generally between the Great Do Master and Doling realms, but among them was one aura that even he dared not underestimate. Although he could not detect the specific realm, it was undoubtedly a Dozong. But how could such a powerhouse suddenly appear in the Cloud Mist sect? Could it be that Protector Wu's aura suddenly becoming so weak and withered was all because of this person? And looking at their current location, it seemed to be at the Gate of Life and Death. Yun Shan narrowed his eyes slightly, deep in thought. Yuner is also by their side. Could she have been coerced? At this thought, Yun Shan took a deep breath and finally decided to come out of seclusion. As the saying goes, danger is always accompanied by opportunity. Although he did not know the purpose of the mysterious Dozong who had suddenly appeared in the Cloud Mist sect, perhaps this would be a chance for him to break free from Protector Wu's control. Yunshan was no fool. He knew very well that since Protector Wu could make him break through to Dozong, he must have been confident in being able to manipulate him, perhaps even planting some unknown means within him. Now that Protector Wu was half dead, it was his chance. On the other side, Yunyun, having opened the gate of life and death, finally cautioned, "Your Excellency Qilin, I have never felt that the gate of life and death would pose a threat to you. However, the strength of the other young ladies is relatively weak. If something goes wrong in the gate of life and death, it wouldn't be worth the loss." After speaking, Yunyun continued to offer her suggestion. Why don't these young ladies temporarily avoid entering the gate of life and death? They can cultivate in the Cloud Mist sect for now and enter after they have broken through to Dowang. Although the gate of life and death is very dangerous, that is only directed at those below the Dowang realm. Once they break through to Dowang, at most they will endure some hardships, but it will not lead to death. Yunyun made this suggestion entirely out of consideration for Shui Yuer and the other women. After all, if Shui Yuer and the others died in the gate of life and death, even if it had nothing to do with the Cloud Mist sect, she feared that Qilin and his group would still hold the Cloud Mist sect responsible. But if she explained it beforehand, it would not only save the lives of Shui Yuer and the others but also earn the favor of Qilin's group. For the Cloud Mist sect and Yunyun, this was undoubtedly a win-win situation. After listening, Qilin waved his hand with a smile. In the original story, Nalan Yanran entered the gate of life and death at the Great Master realm and broke through to the peak of Dowang in 3 years. If she could succeed, couldn't the women who were blessed with luck do the same? One had to know, each of the women was stronger than the Nalan Yanran from the original story, and their physical body strength and combat power were far beyond those of the same realm. Therefore, Qilin smiled and said, "Sect Leader Yun, I appreciate your good intentions, but I have confidence in you and the others. The gate of life and death won't be able to stump them." Seeing Qilin's persistence, Yunyun naturally did not try to persuade them further, otherwise it would only make them unhappy. Shui Binger said to this friend she had only recently met, "Sister Yunyun, don't worry. With Aylin here, we will be fine." The other women also nodded, fully agreeing with Shui Binger's words. Seeing this, Yunyun couldn't help but feel a trace of surprise in her eyes. How exactly did Qilin manage to make so many outstanding women trust him so deeply? At this moment, Qilin had already waved his hand and walked into the gate of life and death first. Seeing this, the women followed him inside without hesitation. In an instant, a cyan light flashed before everyone's eyes, the scenery around them changed drastically, and they were instantly transported into another space. Here, it was incomparably vast, and the land was desolate. Looking further back, there was a magnificent and huge plaza, and 12 giant pillars stood on the plaza. And behind the plaza was a majestic stone tower, over several hundred zhang tall. Qilin and the women entered the gate of life and death, looking at each other. Shui Yuer looked around and said, "I didn't expect that there would be a different world inside the gate of life and death." Shui Binger also nodded and said, "That's right, and this space looks somewhat similar to the blessed land inside Aylin's body, only the energy doesn't seem to be abundant, it's not even as good as the outside world." Everyone was also puzzled. Logically speaking, the gate of life and death can allow people to undergo a transformation. That sect leader Yunyun relied on the gate of life and death to break through from Dowang to Dohuang in just a few years. Having been in the Dupo world for so long, the women had already understood some of the strength conversion relationships between the Dupo world and the Duluo continent. For example, a Dowang powerhouse in the Dupo world was equivalent to a titled Duluo in the Duluo continent. And a Dohuang was equivalent to a divinity in Duluo. Therefore, being able to help a Dowang break through to Dohuang in a short time meant this opportunity should definitely not be small. Yet, the energy concentration here was not even as good as the outside world. How could this enable a Dowang to break through to Dohuang in just a few years? Qilin pointed to the plaza and stone tower in the distance and said with a smile, "The truth is in there. Why don't we go over and take a look?" "That's true. There must be a big secret in there, let's go over and take a look." Shui Yuer was extremely excited. Everyone immediately walked towards the plaza. They saw that there was a pale cyan barrier between the edge of the plaza and the outside land, but after Qilin walked over, this barrier did not block them and directly let them in. And the moment they walked onto the plaza, a phantom face suddenly appeared above the plaza. Interesting, I didn't expect so many people to come in this time. One Dozong, one Dozun, the strength is not bad. As for the others, the phantom face's gaze swept over the women of the Tianshui girl group and commented lightly. The talent is a bit lacking. Hearing this voice, Shui Yuer's little face puffed up in anger, and she muttered softly, "This person really doesn't know how to speak." Qilin faced the phantom face above the plaza directly. From this face, he felt an incomparably pure soul power fluctuation. This fluctuation was stronger, at any rate, it was definitely stronger than his own current soul power. Qilin cupped his hands at the phantom face and said bluntly, "I heard that one can rapidly improve strength here, so we wanted to come and see how great the effect can be." The phantom face spoke slowly, with no emotion audible in its voice. "You are right, one can indeed rapidly improve strength here, but how much strength you can improve ultimately depends on how much ability you have. Moreover, those below the Dowang realm are not qualified to participate in the stone tower test. You need to improve your strength to Dowang here before you can enter the stone tower. Each person can only accept the test once in their lifetime." After the phantom face finished speaking, Qilin asked curiously, "As far as I know, those below the Dowang realm will be in mortal danger here. Where exactly does this danger come from?" The women also looked over curiously. The phantom face gave a strange laugh and continued to explain. "Below the Dowang realm, this seed will personally help you cultivate. If you cannot withstand it, then you deserve to die." Everyone was puzzled, and Qilin asked, "How do you help?" "Of course, like this." Before the words fell, several clusters of cyan light containing incomparably violent energy instantly enveloped the women of the Tianshui girl group, and a powerful sense of oppression immediately followed. This. What violent energy? Within the cyan light, the expressions on the women's faces changed slightly. The violent energy poured into their bodies and rampaged within them. This made them unable to be distracted, so they immediately sat cross-legged and began to run their cultivation techniques to refine these incomparably violent energies within their bodies. If it were ordinary people, their meridians would be devastated by such terrifying energy, let alone cultivating, they might even be blown apart by these violent energies. But unfortunately, in front of the women, these violent energies might cause them a bit of pain, but they were far from reaching a lethal level. Even without looking at the luck on the women, the medicinal pills Qilin gave them to take were, not to mention raising their strength to what level, definitely top tier in the world in terms of foundation. Besides that, their physical body strength was also far beyond the same realm, so how could these violent elements pose a real threat to them? And such a situation clearly made the phantom face above the plaza feel a trace of surprise. Of course, this trace of surprise was fleeting. Because he knew very well that the meaning of his existence was to select a successor for the former master of the Gate of Life and Death. It's just a pity that for countless years, only that little guy named Yun Podian back then was not bad, but unfortunately he still failed to obtain the true legacy. Of course, among the few little guys selected by the Gate of Life and Death this time, there seemed to be an incredible little guy who might be able to obtain the true legacy. While the women of the Tianshui girl group were sitting cross-legged and cultivating, the phantom face said to Qilin, "These little girls will cultivate here. As for the two of you, go directly into that stone tower, there's a real test waiting for you there." The stone tower has 27 stories in total, and the person who has reached the highest level so far is only on the 15th story. Speaking of this, the phantom face could not help but sigh. The geniuses of the northwest continent were ultimately too few. Qilin and Xiao Yixian looked at each other. A bit interesting, let's go over and take a look. Xiao Yixian smiled and nodded, and walked towards the stone tower side by side with Qilin. As for the women of the Tianshui girl group, they remained on the plaza to cultivate. Click tilde. The two arrived in front of the stone tower door, and then they saw the stone tower gate slowly open suddenly. After walking inside, the two came to an incomparably vast space inside the stone tower. In the center of the space, a huge arena made of unknown material stood within it. At this time, a voice slowly sounded. Heaven-reaching tower first story test, time limit, 1 month. Exceeding the time limit, test failed. Countdown, start. Chapter 278, Heaven-reaching tower test begins. Looking at the massive arena in the center of the first floor of the heaven-reaching tower, Qilin and Xiao Yixian exchanged a glance. It looks like the trial in the heaven-reaching tower is a test of combat strength, though I don't know who we'll be fighting, Xiao Yixian said. It should be an energy entity similar to that illusory face from before. Qilin smiled, then asked Xiao Yixian, "Do you want to go first, or should I?" Xiao Yixian smiled gently. "Let me go up and try it first." Ever since her awakening of the calamity poison body, her practical combat experience had been minimal, limited only to when she had exchanged blows with some demonic beasts in the magical beast mountain range. As for Do techniques, even with Qilin's assistance, she had only managed to cultivate 2 of them to the proficiency level so far. After all, Xiao Yixian was not keen on combat, but rather on alchemy, so her research in this area was minimal. For this reason, now that she saw this arena, Xiao Yixian felt a sudden urge to test herself and see just what level her combat ability was at. Seeing Xiao Yixian's choice, Qilin didn't hesitate and said, "Since you want to, then go up and give it a try." Although Xiao Yixian was not skilled at combat and her mastery of Do techniques was average. But as one with the calamity poison body, her combat strength was naturally superior to ordinary experts of the same realm. Even without mastering more powerful Do techniques, her lethal poison chi alone was enough to allow her to look down upon the masses. A serene smile appeared on Xiao Yixian's pretty face, and she lightly tapped her toes. In the next second, her figure floated onto the arena like a piece of drifting catkin. She looked like a stunning fairy, full of immortal chi. However, as Xiao Yixian channeled the poisonous chi of her calamity poison body, strands of purple mist drifted out from her body, enveloping her, which was completely different from the immortal chi she had just radiated. Although Qilin did not come into contact with the purple mist, he could still sense a violent corrosive force from Xiao Yixian's poisonous chi. With such chi, ordinary dozongs would likely find it extremely troublesome even if they were just slightly contaminated by it. As Xiao Yixian stepped onto the arena, a voice rang out in the space once again. Test subject in position, strength is 4-star dozong. As the indifferent voice sounded, in the next second, a phantom suddenly condensed opposite Xiao Yixian. This phantom was dressed in white with an upright figure, but its face looked very blurry, shrouded in green light. The energy fluctuations emanating from his body were clearly on par with Xiao Yixian, both being 4-star dozongs. Clearly, defeating this person was the content of the test. From the moment he appeared, the battle had already begun. The white-robed figure's form was like a flash of green light. He disappeared from his spot in an instant and flashed towards Xiao Yixian. This speed made Xiao Yixian's beautiful eyes narrow slightly. What fast speed! But unfortunately, it is far from enough. After a brief moment of surprise, Xiao Yixian waved her hand, and 2 streams of deep purple poisonous chi erupted from her palms, like 2 surging clouds, rushing towards the white-robed figure. The deep purple clouds were like a man-eating poisonous beast, swallowing the white-robed figure in one gulp. However, only 3 seconds later, the deep purple clouds suddenly, bang, exploded and scattered. The white-robed figure looked a bit more illusory than before, but he still flashed towards Xiao Yixian. In the blink of an eye, he formed a hand seal. In an instant, chi surged, and thousands of green lights poured out from his hand seal, condensing into a green dragon. The dragon roared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws, exuding a terrifying pressure, suddenly magnifying in Xiao Yixian's pupils. But Xiao Yixian had also slowly pointed out a finger at this moment. Profound rank high-level Do technique, profound poison finger. This finger technique was uniquely created by Qilin after he studied the characteristics of Xiao Yixian's calamity poison body and utilized an epiphany. Don't think that just because it is only a profound rank high-level Do technique, it cannot mobilize the energy of heaven and earth like a D-rank Do technique. However, when this Do technique is combined with the calamity poison body, the power it can erupt with is not inferior to a D-rank Do technique at all. Moreover, the difficulty of cultivating this Do technique is, for the calamity poison body, at most only at the profound rank low-level standard. This is also the reason why Qilin created it for Xiao Yixian to cultivate. The difficulty to get started is low, and the power is great. As Xiao Yixian mobilized the poisonous qi within her, her fingertips instantly turned a dark purple. Boom. With a point of her finger, a dark purple beam of light instantly shot out from Xiao Yixian's fingertips, piercing through the green dragon like a laser. Afterwards, like a skewer of candied hawthorns, it continued to shoot towards the white-robed figure with undiminished momentum. The latter reacted extremely quickly, immediately mobilizing his qi to defend, but his defense was instantly broken, and his forehead was pierced through. In an instant, the white-robed figure's body exploded. A green light containing incomparably pure energy descended from the sky and entered Xiao Yixian's body. Xiao Yixian stood on the arena, a look of joy on her pretty face. She looked at Qilin and said with slight excitement, "Qilin, I succeeded." Qilin gave her a thumbs up and praised, as expected of the calamity poison body, "It's truly impressive." After praising her, he continued, "It seems you have passed the first floor's test and can proceed to the second floor. That ball of energy just now should be the reward for passing the first floor test. No wonder one's strength improves rapidly after entering the gate of life and death." Xiao Yixian nodded and said, "That's right. Moreover, I can feel that after that pure energy entered my body, it didn't need me to actively refine it at all, it had already completely merged with me." Speaking of this, a look of regret appeared on Xiao Yixian's face. It's a pity that the pure energy just now wasn't enough. If I want to reach a breakthrough to a 5-star dozong, I would need at least several more balls of energy of that magnitude. Qilin joked with a smile, "You're still not satisfied. This speed is already faster than refining poison pills to cultivate on your own. As for other dozongs, it is possible for them to take years, or even decades, to achieve a breakthrough by 1 star. After hearing this, Xiao Yixian smiled sweetly. That's true. After speaking, Xiao Yixian did not rush to the second floor of the stone tower, but jumped lightly and returned to Qilin's side, wanting to go to the second floor together with Qilin. After Xiao Yixian left the arena, Qilin smiled and said, "It's my turn. I'll be right back." In the next second, he took a step, and his figure appeared on the arena instantly like teleportation. The moment he stepped onto the arena, that voice rang out again. "Test subject is in position, strength is 9-star Dozun." As the voice fell, a white-robed figure, exactly the same as the one from before, appeared on the arena once again. However, unlike the white-robed figure that Xiao Yixian fought, the face of the white-robed figure that Qilin faced already had clear contours and looked more spirited. Chapter 279, Helping Xiao Yixian Cheat, Speedrunning the Heaven-Reaching Tower. In particular, this white-robed figure actually spoke up suddenly. "Little one, I observe that you are not yet 18 years of age, yet your strength has already reached the 9-star Dozun realm. Such talent would likely be considered the most supreme existence even within the emperor families. Could you be a prodigy from one of those Dodi family clans?" Hearing the white-robed figure actually speak, Qilin was slightly stunned, and Xiao Yixian, standing below the arena, was also incredibly shocked. But she quickly reacted. Evidently, the reason this white-robed figure opposite Qilin possessed consciousness and could speak was that this white-robed figure was stronger, having already reached the level of a 9-star Dozun. Qilin reacted even faster, and even when faced with this situation, the expression on his face remained calm throughout. He shrugged and said concisely, "I do not possess any Dodi bloodline. Being able to reach this step today is entirely because my luck is slightly better than others by 100 million. However, after hearing this earnest answer from Qilin, the white-robed figure actually admired him even more, praising him aloud. "You are quite humble, but with talent like yours, if it is not due to a Dodi bloodline, then it is truly terrifying. It would be no exaggeration to call it unprecedented and rare. Ha 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 ha, I now hope that you can clear all 27 levels of the heaven-reaching tower. This way, my legacy can have a successor." Qilin smiled faintly. "Since that is the case, this junior will naturally do his best." Ha 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 ha, good, make your move. Very well. Hearing the white-robed figure finish speaking, Qilin raised his hand and unleashed a Qilin fist. A Qilin phantom condensed from Qilin's fist, exuding an unparalleled, overbearing pressure, its massive body filled with a terrifying sense of oppression. The moment the Qilin phantom appeared, the space here trembled, overflowing with ripples like water waves. And the Qilin phantom only appeared for an instant, stunningly brilliant, and then instantly annihilated the white-robed figure. He hadn't even reacted yet before that energy body had already dissipated. Even Xiao Yixian was amazed by such combat power. Qilin was too miraculous. Although his strength had also been raised in just 2 short months, his foundation seemed as if it had been tempered 1,000 times, completely devoid of any signs of being unstable, and his combat power was off the charts. It was too exaggerated. Qilin instantly annihilated the white-robed figure, then chuckled and returned to Xiao Yixian's side, reaching out to take her wrist. "Let's go, to the next level." On the second level of the heaven-reaching tower, Xiao Yixian's opponent was still the same white-robed figure from the first level, and the strength realm was still a 4-star Dozong, only the number had changed to 2. Facing 2 4-star Dozongs simultaneously, Xiao Yixian remained at ease, and after Qilin applied the purifying divine light to her, her combat experience soared rapidly. As for Qilin, facing the 2 white-robed figures, he didn't wait for the opponents to speak before throwing a punch. One of the 2 white-robed figures clearly had something to say, but before he could speak, he was already annihilated by the Qilin phantom. This also caused that illusory giant face above the square outside the stone tower to reveal a look of surprise. Such combat power was unheard of. Next was the third level of the stone tower, with 3 white-robed figures of the same realm. Qilin and Xiao Yixian both passed through easily. And from the 4th level onwards, the opponent Xiao Yixian face changed back to 1, but its strength had changed from a 4-star dozong to a 5-star dozong. As for Qilin, his opponent was still a 9-star dozun, perhaps this was because the gap between a 9-star dozun and a 1-turn dozun was too great. But in terms of quantity, it had increased from 3 to 9. Xiao Yixian still easily defeated the white-robed figure that was 1 star higher. And needless to say for Qilin, it was still a crushing victory. The two of them continued through the 9 levels of the stone tower with extreme speed and ease. In the process of clearing the tower, Xiao Yixian even achieved a breakthrough of 2 stars in succession. Of course, what followed was that the strength of her opponents also increased as her realm improved. Now, her opponents had become 3 9-star dozongs. As for Qilin, his realm had broken through to a 1-turn dozun, and his opponents had become 3 2-turn dozuns. Of course, even if it were 3 2-turn dozuns, when facing Qilin, the outcome remained unchanged, as they were still instantly killed by the Qilin fist. As time passed, the levels Qilin and Xiao Yixian cleared became higher and higher. Qilin still resolved the battles with 1 punch, but Xiao Yixian had already begun to feel pressure. Although the Calamity Poison body was powerful, her combat experience was ultimately her weakness. She now was not that battle-hardened poison lady from the original work. Although she had Qilin assisting with the purifying divine light, she was not like Qilin, who could enter an epiphany at any time. When they reached the 21st level, Xiao Yixian's strength had already broken through to a 1-star dozun. However, her opponents had reached 3 7-star dozuns. One must know that the gap between dozuns, every small realm, could be described as worlds apart. Even though Xiao Yixian's physique far exceeded those of the same realm after consuming numerous medicinal pills, and she had Qilin's assistance, she was still no match. There was no other way, Qilin could only increase the intensity of the cheats he provided for Xiao Yixian. Who told the protagonist who set up this heaven-reaching tower trial to be so unreasonable? For the Calamity Poison body, crossing a few star levels for Do Wangs and Do Huangs was nothing but a breeze, but to set such difficulty for dozuns as well, was that not too ruthless? Throughout history, how many 1-star dozuns could cross several realms to fight above their level? Even if it were that cheater Xiao Yan from the original work, let him come and try fighting a 7-star dozun as a 1-star dozun and see if he could win. Even if he used the Buddha's Fury Fire Lotus, it would probably be tough. There was a high probability he couldn't win. However, Xiao Yixian was different, she had Qilin. The cheat Qilin provided for her was much simpler and more violent than Xiao Yan's. Directly, a gift of fate. Instantly, it caused Xiao Yixian's power, speed, defense, and Do Qi to all increase tenfold. Who wouldn't be confused by this? With Qilin's cheating, Xiao Yixian was once again unstoppable, and even the white-robed figure testing the two was dumbfounded. Even with his level of insight, he had never seen such terrifying freaks as the two of them. Heaven-reaching tower, 27th level. Xiao Yixian's strength had already broken through to a 4-star dozun. And her opponents had already reached the level of 9 1-turn dozuns. Under such a large gap, even with the amplification of the Destiny's Gift, Xiao Yixian was still no match. Fortunately, if one cheat didn't work, Qilin would just stack another buff. In the Martial Soul Avatar state, all spirit ability effects of the 4-leaf clover Martial Soul were doubled, and there was a certain chance to produce a critical hit. A 1% chance to triple, a 1 in 8,000 chance to quadruple, and a 1 in 10,000 chance to quintuple. Therefore, after Qilin released the Martial Soul Avatar, the amplification given to Xiao Yixian's various attributes reached as high as 50 times. After the 4 attributes were increased 50-fold, let alone a 1-turn dozun, even a 4 or 5-turn dozun would likely not be Xiao Yixian's match. The 27th level of the heaven-reaching tower was thus speedrun and completed. Chapter 280, 25,000 times combat power, the ultimate stat monster. Bang. After Qilin cleared the 27th floor of the heaven-reaching tower and absorbed the completion rewards, his realm naturally advanced to a 7-turn dozun. It might seem like his realm didn't increase much, but that was only because Qilin's realm was already high, and the gap between each realm was simply too vast. For instance, the energy required for each turn between dozun levels was as terrifying as cultivating from a Do practitioner all the way to a dozun. Fortunately, within this heaven-reaching tower, the energy obtained after defeating the corresponding opponent at different realms varied accordingly. Otherwise, I'm afraid that even if all the energy Xiao Yixian obtained from clearing the levels were added together, it would only barely help him break through 1 turn of cultivation. Just as the final white-robed figure vanished, a beam of light descended from the sky, piercing through the entire stone tower. Within the beam of light, a white-robed figure exuding a haughty aura sat upon a stone throne, his eyes opening and closing to reveal pupils as deep as the myriad phenomena of the universe. This white-robed figure's appearance was indistinguishable from an ordinary person, and his body showed no trace of being illusory. Seeing this white-robed figure, Qilin instinctively attacked again. Boom. The Qilin roared, its presence naturally divine, and continued to charge toward the white-robed figure on the stone throne. Because he recognized the extraordinary nature of this figure, although Qilin did not apply the buff from Destiny's Gift to himself, he still unleashed the Qilin offensive technique. In an instant, a Qilin fist with 100-fold combat power erupted from Qilin's hand. Even the mere traces of its overflowing might gave people the feeling that it could destroy the heavens and earth. Even the white-robed figure's expression froze slightly upon seeing this punch. What kind of Do technique is this? He found it hard to imagine that such a terrifying move could come from the hands of a dozun. At the critical moment, the white-robed figure had already stood up from the stone throne. Although Qilin's move had already far exceeded the limits of a dozun, fortunately, his current body could still exert the power of a do saint. Bang! The white-robed figure pointed a finger, causing space to tremble. A surging tide of cyan energy erupted from his fingertip, dissolving the roaring Qilin like spring rain melting snow. Seeing this, Qilin's fighting spirit was ignited, and he immediately planned to stack another buff on himself. He didn't have much else, but he had plenty of buffs, and his stats were terrifyingly exaggerated. Since he started cultivating, he had never once attacked with his full strength. Qilin did the math. By unleashing his spirit ability, Qilin Divine Body, all attributes could be boosted by 5 times, releasing the 4-leaf clover martial soul avatar to use Destiny's gift added another 50 times, totaling 250 times. Coupled with the 100-fold boost from the Qilin offensive technique, Qilin could unleash 25,000 times his own combat power in an instant. With such a boost, it was not impossible for him to kill a high-level Do Saint with the strength of a 6-turn Dozun. No technique at all, just pure stats. But before Qilin could continue, the white-robed figure hurriedly called a halt, his voice tinged with a hint of helplessness. All right, little fellow, stop. My trial for you has ended. Upon hearing this, a look of regret flashed across Qilin's face. It's over already. I still wanted to test my full strength. Sigh, what a pity, I didn't get to fully enjoy it. The white-robed figure seemed to notice the look of unfulfilled desire on Qilin's face, and his expression darkened slightly. Qilin scratched his head and then bowed to the white-robed figure, saying, Senior, are you the master of this world? The white-robed figure smiled faintly and said, that's right. Furthermore, what you see now is merely a corner of the space I created during my lifetime. Qilin nodded after hearing this, he had felt the same way. Since a Do Saint expert could already create space, Qilin had previously guessed that this world within the Gate of Life and Death likely had more to it than just what they could see. Hearing this now, it was just as he had expected. Xiao Yixian felt incredibly curious. Since this senior had already died, who was the one she and Qilin were seeing now? Seemingly aware of Xiao Yixian's confusion, the white-robed figure couldn't help but smile and explain, I have indeed long since fallen. What you see now is merely a wisp of my consciousness. When one's soul power reaches the Emperor realm, it is even possible to achieve an undying soul. I see, Xiao Yixian realized, then added, in that case, are you an Emperor realm soul? The white-robed figure nodded with a smile and said indifferently, I am Saint Qingtian. Even in the era I lived in, I was a dominant figure. Unfortunately, as long as one cannot become a Do Emperor, one cannot escape the erosion of time. At this point, a look of desolation flashed in the white-robed figure's eyes, but it quickly turned into an expression of detachment. Fortunately, I lived freely while roaming the northwest continent during my lifetime. Xiao Yixian listened and asked curiously, with your strength, why didn't you go to the Central Plains to venture and seek opportunities? The white-robed figure smiled lazily and said, the Central Plains is filled with Emperor clans. While experts like me aren't exactly common, there are still 4 or 5 of them. So, even if an opportunity to become a Do Emperor truly descended, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to get any advantage against that bunch of guys. It's better to try my luck in the Northwest continent. Don't look down on the Northwest continent for being remote, it has produced Do Emperors throughout history. What if my luck arrived and I actually stumbled upon a Do Emperor legacy? But clearly, the white-robed figure had spent his whole life searching and still had not found an opportunity to break through to become a Do Emperor. Xiao Yixian exclaimed, the Northwest continent has produced a Do Emperor. The only Do Emperor she had ever heard of was the Tuosh Ancient Emperor, and that information came from Qilin. It was said that this Do Emperor existed tens of thousands of years ago, and since the Tuosh Ancient Emperor, there had been no more Do Emperors on the fighting Qi continent. The white-robed figure sighed, that is natural. In countless ages past, there were many Do Emperors on the fighting Qi continent, with multiple Do Emperors coexisting in the world. It is just a pity that with the disappearance of a special substance, the number of Do Emperors on the fighting Qi continent has become fewer and fewer. The white-robed figure let out a long sigh. The era he existed in was very distant, so he knew many secrets, including the fact that breaking through to become a Do Emperor required source Qi. This was the first time Xiao Yixian had heard such secrets, so she listened with great interest. Forget it, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the final reward for you too. Xiao Yixian's eyes lit up. The rewards she had obtained from clearing the previous 27 floors of the heaven-reaching tower had already helped her break through from a 4-star Dozong to her current 4-star Dozun. What about the final reward? Under Xiao Yixian's expectant gaze, Saint Qingtian smiled faintly, I roamed the northwest continent for over 10,000 years and have countless treasures, I am quite wealthy. Unfortunately, I am alone, having neither descendants nor disciples. Now that you two have passed my final trial, I will bestow all of my inheritance upon you. Chapter 281, The Rich Legacy of Saint Qingtian. After hearing this, Xiao Yixian's mouth parted slightly, her eyes filled with pleasant surprise and shock. The collection of a peak 9-star Do Sheng expert goes without saying, it was terrifyingly vast. A look of joy also appeared on Qilin's face. Who would have thought that a trip to the Cloud Mist sect would yield such a harvest? Hee, my luck is really good. As expected of me. Saint Qingtian watched their expressions and smiled slightly, then teased, looking at you two, you must be a young couple, right? That's fine too, you can both manage the legacy I left behind together. Upon hearing the word, couple, Xiao Yixian's fair face flushed slightly, but her hands had already hooked onto Qilin's arm. Qilin blinked at Saint Qingtian. Senior, don't just talk, why don't you take us to see the treasures you mentioned first? The corner of Saint Qingtian's mouth twitched slightly. You brat are quite impatient, are you already itching to receive this old man's legacy? Qilin shrugged and said with a grin, I mainly just want to inspect the goods first. As a peak 9-star Do Sheng expert, you must have left behind plenty of good stuff. Rest assured, senior, if your legacy falls into our hands, we will definitely make good use of it and ensure it doesn't lose its luster. Hearing Qilin say this, a trace of melancholy couldn't help but appear on Saint Qingtian's face. His current mood was similar to someone who had died but hadn't finished spending all their money. Had he known, he would have found more women back then and fathered a bunch of sons, so he wouldn't have ended up without an heir after dying. Fine, since that's the case, I'll take you to see it. After saying this, Saint Qingtian waved his hand. In an instant, the world spun. The three of them appeared outside the heaven-reaching tower. Behind the previously empty heaven-reaching tower, a vast scene had appeared out of nowhere. Ancient ruins exuded a wild, primeval aura, with massive, moss-covered palaces stretching out in clusters. Peak after peak towered high, surrounded by swirling clouds and mist. The primeval forest was boundless, with no end in sight, and occasionally, giant birds could be seen spreading their wings across the horizon. Xiao Yixian said in shock, "Is this the true appearance of this world? It is truly worthy of being a world created by a peak 9-star Dosheng expert." Upon hearing this, a look of pride appeared on Saint Qingtian's face. Qilin also couldn't help but nod. This world created by Saint Qingtian indeed had some substance to it. If it were a space created by an ordinary Dosheng, without maintenance, it would likely be abandoned over time, either collapsing automatically or falling into the endless void realm. However, this space created by Saint Qingtian remained incredibly stable even after countless years, and Qilin could feel the extremely dense energy within it. No wonder the area just inside the Gate of Life and Death was barren of energy. It seemed that this area was the space Saint Qingtian had truly created. Saint Qingtian beckoned and said, "Follow me." After saying this, he took a step forward and led the way. Qilin and Xiao Yixian followed behind him, and under his guidance, they gained a rough understanding of the layout of this space. Saint Qingtian's collection was extremely rich, covering strange tales, cultivation techniques, dough techniques, pill formulas, secret arts, puppets, and artifact refining. Its scope was far greater than what Qilin had found in the Xiao clan. After all, much of the Xiao clan's legacy had been lost during their 1,000 years of exile. On the other hand, Saint Qingtian had roamed the northwest continent for 10,000 years, acquiring countless gains. His collection could only be described as terrifying. Furthermore, during his era, the Dodi families active on the continent were far more numerous than the current 8 ancient clans. High-level cultivation techniques and dough techniques circulated more freely among experts of their realm, which was why his collection was so incredibly rich. These collections were very valuable to Qilin, as they could help him draw inferences about other things. Besides this, Saint Qingtian also treasured countless jewels and medicinal pills. Unfortunately, as time passed, the energy within those jewels and medicinal pills had drained away significantly, rendering most of them useless, with only a few retaining their essence. This made Qilin and Xiao Yixian feel quite regretful. However, Saint Qingtian still had some other treasures that made the two of them eyes light up. For example, puppets. During the era Saint Qingtian lived in, the secret arts for refining puppets had not yet been lost, and Saint Qingtian himself had collected many puppets. Moreover, given his strength and status, the strength of the puppets he collected went without saying. There were 12 puppets at the Dosheng level alone, with the strongest one reaching the strength of a 5-star Dosheng. Besides that, there were dozens of puppets at the Dozun level. Saint Qingtian didn't have any puppets at lower realms. He couldn't afford to lose face like that. These puppets were good things for Qilin. When he met the women who were out traveling, he could give these puppets to them for self-defense. Besides these, in this space created by Saint Qingtian, there was an extremely vast medicinal garden, where many medicinal herbs were planted, including some that were already extinct. These medicinal herbs would mature, wither, and then grow and mature again, repeating the cycle. After all, not all medicinal herbs could grow for thousands or 10,000 years. The higher the quality of the medicinal herb, the higher its limit, and the higher the limit, the longer it could grow. Of course, the comparison of medicinal herbs from different worlds was also different. Just like in the Dulua world, those immortal herbs could grow for 100,000 years, but could one say that the quality of these immortal herbs was better than the top-tier medicinal herbs of the Dupa world? Obviously not. Of course, Qilin was still very happy to have gained an entire medicinal garden. To him, the value of this medicinal garden was likely more precious than everything else combined. Besides the medicinal garden, the space created by Saint Qingtian also contained a primeval forest that occupied over 90% of the space. In this primeval forest, countless demonic beasts with powerful bloodlines lived. These demonic beasts were all restricted by the rules of the space and could not take human form. However, the strongest demonic beast among them was said to have reached the level of a 1-star Dosheng. It was a pity, if its strength were a bit stronger, strong enough to break the formation left by Saint Qingtian and leave this space, then for it, the world would surely be vast and open, a smooth path ahead. Unfortunately, Saint Qingtian was a peak 9-star Dosheng during his lifetime, and his soul power had reached the Emperor realm. How could a formation left by him be broken by a 1-star Dosheng? How about it? Is my collection eye-catching enough for you? If not for the fact that I have no relatives or friends, there is no way it would have been your turn. Saint Qingtian looked at Qilin and Xiao Yixian with a proud expression. Qilin chuckled and patted Saint Qingtian on the shoulder as if no one else was around. It's very nice. So, does all of this belong to me and Xiao Yixian now? Hearing this, the corner of Saint Qingtian's mouth twitched slightly. This guy really wasn't polite at all. Chapter 282, Snake People Tribe, Qinglin Combined Chapter. Ha 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 ha, look at that expression of yours. Xiao Yixian and I aren't taking your legacy for nothing. One day, when we become Dodi, there will be no shortage of benefits for you, Qilin joked. Xiao Yixian also pursed her lips and smiled. Saint Qingtian rolled his eyes at the two of them and retorted, you are certainly confident in yourself. Do you think it's that easy to have a breakthrough to Dodi? Without the special substance necessary to become a D, no matter how you cultivate, you will never achieve a breakthrough to Dodi. Besides, I have been dead for so many years, do I still care about those little benefits of yours? What benefits could you possibly have that would compare to my legacy? Saint Qingtian's tone carried a hint of disdain. But then Qilin said, resurrection and a breakthrough to Dodi, wouldn't such benefits be better than your legacy? Saint Qingtian was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, little guy, do you know what you are saying? Resurrect me and help me have a breakthrough to Dodi. Wait until you become a Dodi first, although that is almost impossible, as that special substance can no longer be found on the continent. Finally, Saint Qingtian shook his head and sighed. If that special substance existed between heaven and earth, he would fully believe that with the talent Qilin had displayed, he would definitely be able to become a Dodi. But now, the probability was too low. Regarding Saint Qingtian's denial, Qilin did not argue, but said, it doesn't matter. You can just wait here, that day won't be too far off. Qilin's tone remained full of confidence, causing even Saint Qingtian to be infected by his confidence, and a thought sprouted in his heart that he might really be able to have a breakthrough to Dodi. But in an instant, Saint Qingtian adjusted his emotions and joked, are you sure you want me to wait here? Do you know that, actually, hidden within this shred of my consciousness is the essence blood of a 9-star peak Dosheng from before I died? Originally, I intended to burn myself so that while you two obtained my essence blood, you would also obtain my soul origin. But if I follow what you said, then you two won't get my essence blood and soul origin. Hearing this, Qilin shrugged indifferently. If we don't get it, then we don't. It's not like we can't cultivate without your essence blood and soul origin. Watching Qilin's nonchalant expression, Saint Qingtian's mouth twitched slightly, and he couldn't help but defend himself. You brat, do you know how powerful the essence blood of a 9-star peak Dosheng is? Do you know how much a soul origin of an Emperor Realm soul can do for you? Do you know that even high-level Dosheng would go crazy for these two things? Qilin spread his hands. So what, for Xiaoyi Xian and me, even without your essence blood and soul origin, we can still have a breakthrough to Dodi. Although Qilin spoke very casually, Saint Qingtian saw extreme confidence on Qilin's face. This startled him. Clearly, this kid's words were not fake at all, but came entirely from his heart. For a moment, even he couldn't help but believe what he said. Ha 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 ha, very well, since you said so, then I will wait and see. Of course, my essence blood and soul origin are right here, you can come and take them at any time. Living here with only a sliver of consciousness, Saint Qingtian was already tired of it and didn't mind disappearing completely. Outside the gate of life and death. Yunyun and her master Yunshan sat cross-legged on two smooth rocks not far from the stone gate. More than half a month had passed since Qilin and his group entered the gate of life and death. The reason it took so long was that during the process of passing the levels, Xiaoyi Xian would sometimes encounter evenly matched opponents, which would hone her combat experience. It wasn't until later, when the opponents became stronger and she couldn't handle them, that Qilin gave her buffs and they swept through. At first, Yunyun did not intend to wait outside the gate of life and death forever. After all, once one entered the gate of life and death, it would take at least a year or so to come out, right? Each level of the heaven-reaching tower had a time limit of 1 month. Back then, Yunyun had passed 8 levels, taking 8 months. Yunyun felt that no matter how good Qilin was, his results shouldn't be weaker than her own. Before Yunyun was about to leave, she was stopped by Yunshan. After Yunshan learned that Qilin's strength was unfathomable, his mind became active. If he could befriend such an expert, the benefits to the Cloud Mist sect would be immeasurable. Therefore, he called Yunyun to stay with him outside the gate of life and death to wait for Qilin to come out, so they could offer congratulations at the first opportunity and gain some favor. Crack. Just at this moment, the stone gate of the gate of life and death slowly opened. The sound of the door opening startled the master and disciple, Yunshan and Yunyun, who were meditating and cultivating. The two looked at each other, as if saying, how could someone come out so quickly? It hasn't even been a month. Could it be that they couldn't even pass the first level of the heaven-reaching tower? Of course, that was obviously impossible, so this thought flashed and vanished. The master and disciple thought of another possibility. Perhaps Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian were arrogant and did not stay in every level of the heaven-reaching tower for a full month. In this way, although Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian only stayed in the heaven-reaching tower for half a month, they might have passed more levels than them. As the stone gate opened, Yunyun and Yunshan immediately stood up and flew to the front of the stone gate. Under their gaze, Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian slowly walked out of the gate of life and death. Yunshan of the Cloud Mist sect congratulates the two of you on your great increase in strength. Yunyun congratulates the two of you on your great increase in strength. Yunshan and Yunyun clasped their hands. Qilin waved his hand casually, a faint smile appearing on his face as he said, this is thanks to the gate of life and death, otherwise, our strength probably wouldn't have improved so quickly in such a short time. Hearing this, Yunyun and Yunshan's eyes lingered on Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian for a moment and their hearts relaxed. It seemed that the two had indeed gained a lot in the gate of life and death. The four of them exchanged a few more polite words, and Yunshan bowed to Qilin. Qilin smiled and said, Brother Yunshan, what is the meaning of this? Yunshan said respectfully, not long ago, I was bewitched by Protector Wu of the Hall of Souls, and my life and death were in his control. If it weren't for your excellency Qilin subduing him, I fear I would still be unable to break free from him. Yunshan's words were not false. Yunyun was also secretly rejoicing on the side. If not for Qilin, she feared Protector Wu would have succeeded. Theoretically, Protector Wu helped Yunshan break through to Dozong at his most critical moment, so it was not inappropriate for Yunshan to take orders from Protector Wu. But who asked Protector Wu to have bad intentions from the beginning? He not only wanted to play tricks on Yunshan, but also on the entire Cloud Mist sect. Once the Cloud Mist sect had no utilization value, he would turn them all into nourishment. Therefore, if it weren't for Qilin, and Protector Wu had continued to implement his plan, it would have been a catastrophe for the Cloud Mist sect. So, one can imagine. When Yunshan came out of seclusion and discovered that the Protector Wu he had always feared had been subdued by Qilin, and even had his cultivation crippled, how excited he was. This was not just a life-saving grace, but because Qilin had saved the 1,000-year foundation of the entire Cloud Mist sect. I crippled that Protector Wu, but that was just because he brought it upon himself, Qilin said with a faint smile. Yunshan said respectfully, although your excellency Qilin did it unintentionally, you truly saved me and the entire Cloud Mist sect. I am endlessly grateful for this kindness. If you ever have a need for me in the future, I will definitely do my best. Of course, the main point of these words was to indicate his attitude. After all, with the strength Qilin had shown, what help could Yunshan, a mere dozong, offer him? Alright, there's no need to mention such a small matter, Qilin said lazily. Now that the Tianshui girl group were all in the Gate of Life and Death, it was estimated that they wouldn't be able to come out for a short time, so he didn't plan to stay in the Cloud Mist sect for too long. In the end, it was because Yunshan spoke well that they stayed in the Cloud Mist sect for a few days. During these few days, when Yunshan heard that Yunling had once offended the women of the Tianshui girl group, he directly removed him from his position as Grand Elder. Besides that, Yunshan racked his brains for Qilin, bringing out almost all the treasures of the sect. Actually, if Xiao Yixian hadn't been by Qilin's side, Yunshan would probably have started promoting Yunyun to him. Of course, after learning that Yunyun and Shui Binger were on good terms, Yunshan came up with another plan. This Your Excellency Qilin had too indifferent a personality. If he wanted to please him, he couldn't target him directly. Instead, those girls who were still in the Gate of Life and Death, Yunshan felt, were a great opportunity. Especially since Yunyun was on good terms with that girl named Shui Binger, this might be the best chance for the Cloud Mist sect to hook up with Qilin. After Qilin and Xiao Yixian left the Cloud Mist sect, they set off to leave the imperial capital. It turned out that Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, who were far away in Stone Desert City in the Tager Desert, had encountered a little trouble. After the two met Qinglin in Stone Desert City, with Qinglin's help, they accidentally noticed Medusa, who had gone underground into the magma to search for the green lotus core flame. After some twists and turns, Medusa sensed Qinglin's uniqueness. Coupled with the fact that Qinglin was a hybrid of human and snake people, she planned to take her back to the snake people tribe. Du Guyan and Yi Lingling naturally would not agree, so they ended up fighting with Queen Medusa. However, although Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were not weak, they had only just reached Douling. Even relying on the treasures left by Qilin, they were still no match for the Peak Do Huang Medusa. In the end, they were all rounded up by Queen Medusa and invited to be guests in the Snake People tribe. Of course, there were three main reasons why Queen Medusa did not kill Du Guyan and Yi Lingling. The first was that the two of them had reached the Douling level at a young age and possessed treasures capable of threatening a Do Huang. Perhaps they were descendants of some major power. Unless necessary, Medusa would not kill them. Secondly, as a hybrid of the Snake People tribe and the human race, even the Snake People tribe hated her bloodline, yet Du Guyan and Yi Lingling could treat her like a sister. Thirdly, the combat style of the Jade Phosphorus Dragon transformed from Du Guyan made Queen Medusa feel not only novelty but also a hint of intimacy. It even made Queen Medusa wonder if Du Guyan, like them snake people, had implanted the soul of a demonic beast in her body since childhood. It was precisely because of these three reasons that although Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were taken to the Snake People tribe, they enjoyed the highest treatment. But the real trouble came from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. In the process of Du Guyan and Yi Lingling fighting with Medusa, Qinglin accidentally awakened her triple jade green snake flower pupils. This also attracted the attention of two Do Huang experts from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. In the end, they even searched for clues all the way to the Snake People Holy City. The two Do Huangs from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion had impressive strength. Although Queen Medusa took action, because she had been injured in the process of taking away the green lotus core flame in the underground magma, she could only exert 7 or 8 tenths of her strength, and eventually, she let the two escape. And this, therefore, buried a huge disaster. You must know that the Heavenly Serpent Mansion was a top power in the Northwest continent, and there were even Dozun experts sitting in the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. This time they let the two Do Huangs of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion go. Next time they came, it might be a Dozong. With the current strength of the Snake People tribe, although there were a few hidden Peak Do Huang old antiques, it was fine to contend with those who had just entered Dozong, but if they encountered even stronger ones, I fear the entire Snake People tribe would be exterminated because of this. Therefore, those old antiques all wanted to hand over Qinglin to preserve the Snake People tribe. Du Guyan and Yi Lingling had no choice, so they had to contact Qilin. After Qilin and Xiao Yixian received the help request from Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, they immediately set off from the imperial capital. With Qilin's current strength, opening a space channel to the Snake People tribe was but a matter of a breath. If it were before, even if Qilin went to the Snake People tribe, he would definitely fly over slowly, like sightseeing. But now, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were in trouble, so there could be no delay. Although, even if the Heavenly Serpent Mansion wanted to send someone to the Snake People tribe again, it would at least take several months. Snake People tribe, Holy City. In the magnificent palace in the center of the Holy City, Du Guyan smiled and said to Yi Lingling, "Little brother Qilin has already received our message. I suppose it won't be long before he comes." Yi Lingling nodded and said, "With Lin's current strength, from the imperial capital to here, I fear it won't even take an hour." Beside them stood a petite but delicate-looking girl, like a porcelain doll. She was wearing a green dress. Listening to the name that was always mentioned by the two sisters, a flash of curiosity crossed her eyes. Looking at the girl beside her, Du Guyan smiled and said, "Little Qinglin, when little brother Qilin arrives, you will be safe." Qinglin nodded sensibly. Even if Qilin didn't come, when the people from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion arrived, she would take the initiative to stand up and not let the people from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion hurt the sisters. Anyway, the people from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion were also coming for her. Just as Qinglin was innocently thinking about things, a slightly lazy voice suddenly sounded beside her. "Yanzi, Lingling, I found you." Qinglin was slightly startled. She turned her head and saw two figures, like a divine couple, suddenly appearing in a silver vortex that had appeared out of nowhere. Qinglin's gaze lingered on the man, her cheeks flushed slightly, and she guessed in her heart. This big brother should be the Qilin mentioned by the two sisters, right? Chapter 283, Qinglin's emotion. Brother Qilin. Ailin. When Du Guyan and Yi Lingling saw Qilin, their eyes were filled with surprise. "Brother Qilin, we just contacted you, how did you arrive so quickly?" Du Guyan's pretty face was filled with confusion. The imperial capital was at least 2 or 3,000 li away from the Snake People holy city. Even if Brother Qilin was a Dozun expert, he couldn't have arrived so quickly, right? Qilin chuckled, wrapped his arms around the waists of Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, and pecked each of them lightly on the cheek before saying matter-of-factly, I couldn't help it. As soon as I heard you might be in danger, I was burning with anxiety. I ended up moving the heavens, and they specifically teleported me here. You know, my luck has always been good, moving heaven and earth is normal. Du Guyan's eyes were alluring. She naturally knew that this nonsense about moving the heavens and being teleported here was definitely something Brother Qilin had made up. But seeing that he was so worried about her and Lingling, Du Guyan still felt very happy. No, I must properly reward Brother Qilin tonight. At this thought, Du Guyan's snow-white cheeks were already flushed with a rosy glow. Upon hearing Qilin's words, Yi Lingling's expression remained quiet and calm, but she leaned her cheek against Qilin's shoulder, her face full of happiness. Watching this scene, Qinglin's small mouth was slightly agape, looking round, and her face, which resembled a porcelain doll, instantly flushed red. She hadn't expected Du Guyan and Yi Lingling to have this side to them. Little Qinglin was greatly shocked at this moment. However, she could tell from the expressions on the two sisters' faces that they were genuinely happy from the bottom of their hearts. Then, Qinglin's gaze turned cautiously toward Xiao Yixian, who had walked out of the silver vortex with Qilin. This sister, who looked like a fairy in Qinglin's eyes, shouldn't be angry, right? Well, although Xiao Yixian had a faint smile on her face and had long known that there were many such sisters, seeing this scene again still left her feeling somewhat depressed. Of course, such emotions were fleeting. Otherwise, she wouldn't be getting along quite well with Xiao Wu, Ning Rongrong, and the women of the Tianshui girl group. Qilin spoke affectionately with Du Guyan and Yi Lingling for a short while before letting them go and looking at Qinglin, who was standing to the side. Facing Qilin, having read the original work, naturally had some affection for this seemingly delicate young girl. He also knew that at this stage, her nature was weak and her heart sensitive, so he spoke to her with a gentle expression. You must be Qinglin, right? I've heard your sister Du Guyan and sister Lingling mention you long ago. I originally thought they were exaggerating, but I didn't expect them to have been conservative. Look, what a cute little girl. Qilin patted Qinglin's head, causing the little girl's cheeks to flush crimson and her heart to beat rapidly. Qinglin wanted to speak, but hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to call Qilin. Although this big brother was very gentle, she wondered if calling him big brother would make him think she was trying to curry favor. At this moment, Du Guyan noticed her thoughts and immediately smiled, saying, Little Qinglin, just call brother Qilin, brother. After all, who wouldn't like a little sister like you? Seeing Du Guyan speak, Qinglin finally plucked up some courage and said, Brother Qilin. Ha ha ha, good. Hearing Qinglin's voice, which was full of courage yet still carried a hint of shyness, Qilin couldn't help but laugh happily. He then casually took out a jade green bracelet. This bracelet was entirely jade green, glowing with a lustrous light, and looked very valuable. These were all items Qilin had crafted in his spare time to pass the time. He hadn't relied on looting creation, so in terms of quality, they were far inferior to the treasures crafted by looting creation. However, even so, this bracelet was still a rare treasure. After taking out the jade green bracelet, Qilin handed it to Qinglin and said with a smile, You called me, brother, so is your big brother, let me give you a gift for our first meeting. Seeing this, Qinglin was somewhat at a loss, subconsciously glancing at Du Guyan and Yi Lingling. Du Guyan chuckled, Little Qinglin, since this is a gift from your brother Qilin for your first meeting, you should accept it. Hearing this, Qinglin finally took the jade green bracelet from Qilin's hand and said shyly, Thank you, brother Qilin. Qinglin will definitely treasure this bracelet forever. Qilin laughed, No need to be so solemn. It's nothing much, just a small bracelet. Although he said that, in reality, this little bracelet wasn't that simple, it was enough to activate a protective shield that no one below the Do Huang level could break, no matter how hard they tried. Qinglin, however, shook her head very seriously, regarding the jade green bracelet in her hand as an unparalleled treasure. This was her treasure, and she would cherish it for her entire life. Afterward, Qilin introduced Xiao Yixian to the three women, Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and Qinglin. Upon learning that Xiao Yixian was actually a Dozun expert, and that she had only been cultivating for a few months, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were completely numb, except for Qinglin, who only had a superficial understanding of cultivation. They willingly called Xiao Yixian, sister. Originally, given Du Guyan's personality, she certainly wouldn't have easily accepted someone younger than herself as a sister. But in front of Xiao Yixian, how could she compare? What kind of concept was this? If this were in the Dulua world, even a god king would be nothing in front of a Dozun. Therefore, Du Guyan decisively surrendered. Xiao Yixian was also very calm and composed. As long as Du Guyan and Yi Lingling dared to call her that, she would accept these two sisters with peace of mind. Afterward, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling shared with Qilin some of the things they had seen and heard during their travels since they had left. Their laughter, like silver bells, echoed through the palace. Qilin also shared with them the things he and Xiao Yixian had seen and heard along their journey. Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and Qinglin listened with great interest. Upon learning about the effects of Xiao Yixian's calamity poison body, they were even more envious of her. With the calamity poison body's drawbacks removed, combined with the poison pills refined by Qilin, it was no wonder Xiao Yixian's speed of breakthrough was so terrifying. Besides this, upon learning that the Cloud Mist sect actually had such a good place as the Gate of Life and Death, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were also very tempted. Lingling, why don't we go to the Cloud Mist sect to take a look sometime? Yi Lingling thought for a moment and said, Sure, and we can also see Binger, Uaa, and the others while we're there. Qilin smiled upon hearing this, When the time comes, just go to the Cloud Mist sect and mention my name, sect leader Yun will naturally let you in. Just as everyone was chatting and laughing, a seductive figure was walking toward the palace. I didn't expect that new guests had arrived in the holy city again. Chapter 284, First Meeting with Queen Medusa. A bewitching and charming voice, like seductive poison, suddenly drifted from the palace gate. Everyone was slightly startled, then looked up. A figure stood at the palace gate, wearing a luxurious purple brocade robe, with a graceful, curvaceous, and voluptuous body like a ripe peach. Such a femme fatale, looking across the snake people holy city, who else could it be but Queen Medusa? Upon seeing Queen Medusa, Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and Qing Lin immediately stood up to greet her. Big sister Medusa, you've come too. Medusa dragged a section of her snake tail beneath her purple brocade robe as she slowly walked into the palace. After slightly nodding to the three women, she turned her gaze toward Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian. She could not sense the slightest energy fluctuation from them, they looked just like two ordinary people. However, being able to appear in the snake people holy city so silently, Queen Medusa did not believe they were just ordinary people. Under these circumstances, since she could not discern their background, it could only mean one thing. The strength of these two people before her was absolutely unfathomable, far exceeding the realm she could perceive. After entering the hall, Queen Medusa came before the group and smiled slightly. Little sister Dugu, don't you intend to introduce these two to your big sister? Oh, big sister Medusa is right. Hearing this, Du Guyan immediately reacted and continued to introduce them. Big sister Medusa, this is Qilin, whom Yi Lingling and I often mention. As for the other, this is Xiaoyi Xian, who is also a sister to Yi Lingling and me. Hearing Du Guyan's explanation, Queen Medusa immediately understood the meaning of sister, in her words. And the man they were with was clearly Qilin. Thinking of this, Queen Medusa's gaze toward Qilin instantly carried a hint of curiosity. Because Queen Medusa was very puzzled, she couldn't even probe Qilin's strength, which meant that Qilin had at least the strength of a dozong. In that case, it could be said to be normal for him to win the hearts of both Du Guyan and Yi Lingling. But Xiaoyi Xian was different, since her strength was also so strong, how could she tolerate Qilin's philandering? Did she have no pride at all as a powerful expert? She was actually willing to share a man with other women. I am the current queen of the snake people tribe, you two may simply call me Medusa. Since you two are friends of little sister Dugu and little sister Lingling, you are honored guests of my snake people tribe. On behalf of the entire snake people tribe, I welcome you both. If the people standing here were just ordinary Do Ling or Do Wang, even if they were good friends of Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, Queen Medusa would never be so polite. But unfortunately, the strength of Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian was too unfathomable, which is why Queen Medusa decided to befriend them and form a good relationship. Because Queen Medusa had already made up her mind to use the Green Lotus Core Flame to attempt to break through to Dozong. However, using a heavenly flame to attempt to break through to Dozong carried immense risks, one might accidentally be reduced to ashes and suffer an eternal doom. And what Queen Medusa was most worried about now was the Snake People tribe. If she were to die and the Snake People tribe had no new queen, what would happen? That was why Queen Medusa wanted to use this opportunity to befriend two powerful experts and form a good relationship. This way, even if she failed in her future breakthrough to Dozong, with this relationship, the Snake People tribe, even if not living particularly well, would at least not face a catastrophe. In that case, we will be troubling you in the coming days. Qilin cupped his hands casually. While Queen Medusa was sizing him and Xiaoyi Xian up, was he not also sizing up Medusa? In terms of appearance, Medusa could be said to be at the level of a seductress. Her light purple eyes looked slightly long and narrow, and as her gaze shifted, her charm was natural. Even Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and Xiaoyi Xian, who had consumed medicinal pills to slightly enhance their appearances, could not dare say they would definitely win in comparison to Queen Medusa. Meeting Qilin's gaze, Queen Medusa smiled calmly and said, since you two have come to my Snake People holy city for the first time, please move to the main hall so that I may fulfill my duties as a host. Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian looked at each other and nodded with a smile. We accept your kind offer. Seeing this, Queen Medusa's smile was stunning as she gestured with her fair hand. Everyone, please. The main hall of the Snake People tribe was not as luxurious as the Jama royal family palace, nor as imposing as the Cloud Mist sect's main hall, but it excelled in simplicity and majesty. Inside the main hall, the tall pillars were carved with various snake-shaped demonic beasts, looking lifelike, as if they were binding around the pillars. On the 4 stone walls of the main hall, various murals were depicted, the contents of which seemed related to the origins of the Snake People tribe, specifically the journey of the first generation of the Snake People tribe as they migrated to the Tager Desert. After arriving at the main hall of the Snake People tribe, Medusa immediately ordered a banquet to be prepared and also sent people to invite the 4 peaked Huang elders of the Snake People tribe, thereby showing her respect for Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian. Although Du Guyan and Yi Lingling had established a good relationship with Queen Medusa after a fight, they had not received this treatment. There was no other reason, this was the convenience brought by strength. Soon, the 4 elders were invited into the main hall. Although the messenger did not reveal the identity, background, or strength of the 2 guests, the 4 elders were cunning and experienced, and knowing the queen's character, they immediately guessed that the guests' identities and strength were definitely not simple. Otherwise, given the queen's pride, she would never be so solemn. Sure enough, after the 4 elders entered the main hall, they immediately looked at Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian based on the seating arrangements. At first glance, the 2 looked like ordinary people, and no chi could be sensed from them. But it was precisely because of this that the 4 elders instantly understood the reason for Queen Medusa's solemnity. One must know that with the strength of the 4, even ordinary Dozong experts could not hide their chi so perfectly in front of them. This alone was enough to explain everything. Subsequently, Queen Medusa solemnly introduced Qilin and Xiaoyi Xian to the 4 elders. At the banquet, music played, and several Snake People tribe dancers, wearing gorgeous dance costumes, danced in the center of the hall, performing the characteristic dance of the Snake People tribe. Everyone watched with great interest. The four elders of the Snake People tribe, however, were not focused on enjoying the dance. Instead, they let their gazes linger on Qilin and Queen Medusa for a moment, then the four looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. Come to think of it, ever since the queen ascended to the throne of the Snake People tribe, she had been working diligently all these years to protect the Snake People tribe, but she had not even left behind a single heir. How could this do? Moreover, with the queen's talent, if she could give birth to an heir, it would surely be a seed of a Dozong, which would one day definitely be able to lead the Snake People tribe to glory once again. It seems that this matter must be urged upon the queen. Moreover, there now happened to be the best candidate for the queen's husband. Chapter 285, The Queen Borrows Seed. Clearly, the best candidate for the queen's husband in the eyes of the four elders of the Snake People tribe was undoubtedly Qilin. One cannot blame them for thinking of selling the queen. The truth is that the current situation of the Snake People tribe is not optimistic. Although the Snake People tribe currently seems to have a fearsome reputation in the surrounding areas, causing outside enemies to not dare to easily invade, the main reasons for this are the following two. First, the Tager Desert where the Snake People tribe resides has a harsh climate and barren resources, and it is surrounded by the Jiaoma Empire and several other empires, which happens to form a military buffer zone. Second, the people of the Snake People tribe are famous for being fierce, and on top of that, the tribe has Queen Medusa and four Peak Do Huang elders holding down the fort. It is precisely because of these two reasons that the other countries feel apprehensive. Because once a full-scale war with the Snake People tribe begins, it will inevitably break the tacit understanding between the several countries. Additionally, the Snake People tribe is a tough nut to crack. If one wants to destroy the Snake People tribe, it requires dispatching a Dozong, and it cannot be just an ordinary Dozong. Otherwise, the final result would only be mutual destruction and both sides suffering heavy losses. And at that time, how would the other countries sit by and wait for death? They would inevitably seize the opportunity to strike, causing the opponent to be unable to attend to both ends. It is precisely under this delicate balance that the Snake People tribe has been able to survive in the Tager Desert. However, the four elders of the Snake People tribe have always been deeply concerned about this, always worrying that one day the balance will be broken and the Snake People tribe will suffer a catastrophic disaster because of it. Of course, there is an even more urgent matter now. The triple jade green snake flower pupils have reappeared in the world. This is the nemesis of snake-type demonic beasts and also the nemesis of the Snake People tribe. According to ancient records left by the Snake People tribe, this physique has supreme potential, and becoming a Dozun is not a problem at all. And now, this physique is within their Snake People tribe. This is a heaven-defying opportunity. However, fortune and misfortune are interdependent. The existence of Qinglin has also attracted the covetous eyes of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. If the problem with the Heavenly Serpent Mansion cannot be solved, then when the experts from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion arrive, Qinglin will be snatched away by the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. Fortunately, at this critical juncture, Qilin and Xiao Yixian appeared. The four elders of the Snake People tribe could not see through the strength of the two, but they firmly believed that both were at least Dozong, and not ordinary Dozong at that. Such young prodigies might very well be heirs cultivated by some great power. The ancestors of the Snake People tribe migrated from the Central Plains and left behind many ancient books, so the knowledge of the four elders of the Snake People tribe is much broader than that of Jia Xingtian and others. Just like Jia Xingtian and others, in their view, a 17 or 18-year-old great Do master is already a genius only seen once in a millennium. But the Snake People tribe learned through ancient books that the Central Plains is vast and boundless, full of wonders. Although a 17 or 18-year-old genius is rare, they are not non-existent. And Qilin and Xiao Yixian are very likely descendants of great powers in the Central Plains. If such geniuses could accomplish good things with the queen, then why would the Snake People tribe not flourish? Although the gap between the queen and Qilin is a bit large, the four elders of the Snake People tribe never doubted the queen's charm. After all, in terms of beauty, the queen is a once-in-a-millennium occurrence in the history of the Snake People tribe. It is just that given the queen's proud personality, I fear she might not be willing to rely on Qilin. Some psychological preparation still needs to be done for her. Just like that, in the time it took for a banquet, the four elders of the Snake People tribe had already made a decision for Queen Medusa. As soon as the banquet ended, the four of them proactively sought out Queen Medusa and began to hint around. Facing the continuous persuasion of the four elders, Queen Medusa could be said to have a splitting headache. The four elders made sense. The current situation of the Snake People tribe is not good. If she could be tied to a prodigy like Qilin, that would undoubtedly be a rare opportunity. Moreover, Qilin is extremely outstanding in every aspect. Looking at the entire continent, he is definitely a dragon among men. To be fair, apart from her temperament and appearance, Queen Medusa is completely unworthy of Qilin in other aspects. However, Queen Medusa also has her own pride. How could the queen, who has a fearsome reputation in the surrounding countries, rush to throw herself at him just because of Qilin's talent? Moreover, Queen Medusa had already prepared the Green Lotus Core Flame and other materials, just waiting for the right time to use the Green Lotus Core Flame to complete her evolution and make a desperate gamble. Everything has reached this critical point. Ask her to give it up. How is that possible? However, the four elders continued to persuade her earnestly. Queen, even if you want to evolve, you must at least wait until you have given birth to an heir. Yes, as our Snake People tribe queen, how can you have no offspring? Exactly, evolving using the exotic fire is a matter of 9 deaths and 1 life. If you have an accident and haven't left behind an heir, what will the Snake People tribe do in the future? The four elders spoke one after another, their tone earnest, and it actually made Queen Medusa reflect. Since she had made up her mind to use the exotic fire to evolve, she was naturally not afraid of death. But as the queen of the Snake People tribe, she could not help but consider the Snake People tribe, even if this went against her own inner pride. However, although a crack had already opened in her heart, Queen Medusa still could not make up her mind for a long time. She also didn't know what face to use to face Qilin and ask him to borrow seed to have a child. However, just when Queen Medusa had not yet made up her mind, the four elders of the Snake People tribe looked at each other and smiled. The four cunning old foxes obviously had already guessed Queen Medusa's thoughts, so they patted their chests and indicated. Queen, don't worry, the matter of borrowing seed from your excellency Qi Lin does not require your concern, just leave it to us to arrange. Presumably, you would not want the snake people tribe to fall apart after an accident happens to you because there is no successor, right? Queen Medusa remained silent. After her expression changed for a while, she gritted her teeth and waved her hand. Fine, do as you wish. Remember, this queen is only borrowing seed. Upon hearing this, the four elders cupped their fists and left with joyful smiles. On the other side, Qi Lin and Xiao Yixian stayed in the sanctuary of the snake people tribe, preparing to wait for the heavenly serpent mansion to come knocking. During this time, he helped instruct Qinglin and, by the way, created a cultivation technique specifically for her based on her physique. If Qinglin's potential were fully developed, it would be no worse than the calamity poison body. Besides this, the second thing Qilin wanted to do was to continue summarizing some high-level cultivation techniques obtained from Saint Qingtian and then make another improvement to his Destiny Qilin art. Even if each improvement could only add a trace of foundation to the Destiny Qilin art, Qilin still enjoyed it, immensely savoring the results of the Destiny Qilin art being enhanced each time. Previously, Qilin was incredibly laid back and slack, but ever since meeting Meng Yuan, Qilin suddenly also began to yearn for a higher-level world. Since that is the case, he naturally hopes that his own foundation is as deep as possible. Chapter 286. The Queen enters the marriage record of the flowers. Ever since the four elders of the snake people tribe persuaded Queen Medusa, they did not go directly to Qilin. Instead, they first approached Du Guyan and Yi Lingling, who were on good terms with Queen Medusa, to sound them out. They mainly spoke to the two women about how difficult the situation of the snake people tribe was, what Queen Medusa had sacrificed for the tribe, and so on. Sigh, the life of your majesty the queen has been too bitter. She has completely dedicated herself to the snake people tribe, and now, in order to achieve a breakthrough to the Dozong realm, she is even prepared to swallow a heavenly flame to force a breakthrough. The two of you must surely know that our snake people tribe has a cold attribute, while that heavenly flame is the most young and rigid object between heaven and earth. Their attributes conflict with each other. If Her Majesty the Queen wants to rely on the heavenly flame to achieve a breakthrough to the Dozong realm, I fear it will be a life or death gamble. In particular, Her Majesty the Queen currently has no offspring. If the breakthrough fails, what will become of our snake people tribe? Listening to the words of the four elders, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling sighed at Queen Medusa's dedication to the snake people tribe. At the same time, thinking about how dangerous what Queen Medusa was about to do was, they couldn't help but feel a bit more worried for her. After all, having spent this time together, Queen Medusa had taken good care of both women, and they enjoyed the highest treatment within the snake people tribe. Therefore, they naturally did not want to see anything happen to her. Du Guyan asked curiously, so, the four elders hope that we can speak up and persuade Sister Medusa. The four elders nodded upon hearing this. If you can persuade Your Majesty the Queen to stop, we would naturally be overjoyed. But if it is truly impossible to persuade her, we ask that the two of you find a way to convince Her Majesty the Queen to ensure she leaves behind an heir for our tribe, to inherit the position of the next queen. Upon hearing this, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling paused. The former sighed slightly and said, "Four elders, then Lingling and I will do our best." Many thanks to you both. It is truly fortunate for Her Majesty the Queen to have two friends like you. At this moment, one of the elders suddenly let out a long sigh and shook his head. It is a pity. Her Majesty the Queen has always been proud. Looking at the entire snake people tribe, there is not a single male snake person who can catch her eye. Even if she wanted to leave an heir, she wouldn't know who to choose. At this very moment, the four elders had truly revealed their true intentions. If there was no one in the snake people tribe that caught Queen Medusa's eye, that meant there might be someone in the human race, right? And among the people of the human race that Queen Medusa had seen, who was the most qualified? Besides Qilin, who else could it be? Du Guyan and Yi Lingling were not foolish people. They naturally understood the intentions of the four elders in an instant, and were suddenly overcome by a sense of absurdity. Of course, both of them were also very clear about the personality of that queen. With her pride, no matter how outstanding Qilin was, she would likely not throw herself at him. However, looking at the posture of these four elders, it seemed they might have already persuaded the queen. Yet, given that Queen's personality, even if she reluctantly agreed, she would likely not act rashly before making a firm decision. Therefore, the four elders had come to test their thoughts. To be honest, even Du Guyan and Yi Lingling had to admit to Queen Medusa's stunning beauty. If they hadn't taken the creation heaven mending pill back then, both in terms of appearance and temperament, they would definitely have been far inferior to Queen Medusa. Therefore, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling couldn't even imagine how stunning Queen Medusa would be once she took a similar medicinal pill and was reborn. And with Qilin's personality, if such a peerless beauty, gifted by heaven, were to take the initiative to launch an offensive against him, it would definitely be a sure success. After all, both Du Guyan and Yi Lingling knew their little brother Qilin and Alin very well, and knew that he could not refuse such a situation. Otherwise, how could so many of their sisters have succeeded so easily? Therefore, Du Guyan and Yi Lingling only thought for a short 2 seconds before making a decision in their hearts. Looking at the appearance of the four elders of the snake people tribe, it seemed that even if they didn't agree, the four elders would still find a way to bring about the union between Sister Queen and Qilin. Since that was the case, why should they play the villain now? Thus, after the two exchanged a glance, Du Guyan smiled charmingly and said, "Four elders, rest assured, leave this matter to Lingling and me. Although there is no one in the snake people tribe that Sister Queen fancies, Lingling and I know of an optimal candidate who will definitely catch Sister Queen's eye." The four elders were overjoyed upon hearing this. They didn't expect it to be so simple. That's great. However, the four elders suppressed their excitement and asked knowingly, "May I ask who the person Miss Dugu is referring to is?" A trace of pride appeared on Du Guyan's pretty face as she said, "What do the four elders think of my little brother Qilin?" Upon hearing this, the four elders' wrinkled old faces smiled like chrysanthemums, but they still suppressed their excitement and said, "If it is your excellency Qilin, then that is naturally excellent. I believe that even Her Majesty the Queen would absolutely have no objections." At this moment, one of the elders appropriately expressed a bit of hesitation. "It's just that I don't know if your excellency Qilin would agree to such a thing." Du Guyan took full responsibility, saying, "Just leave it to Lingling and me." The four elders immediately bowed excitedly to Du Guyan and Yi Lingling. "Thank you, Miss Dugu, thank you, Miss Yi. Being able to befriend friends like you is truly Her Majesty the Queen's good fortune." After the four elders left, Yi Lingling said, "Sister Du Guyan, are we really going to help?" Du Guyan shrugged and said, "We've already promised, so naturally we have to help. Don't you want Sister Medusa to become a true sister to us?" Yi Lingling shook her head and said, "That's not it. Besides, Sister Medusa is so good in both appearance and temperament, even if we didn't help, as long as Lin stays here for a long time, wouldn't she become our sister anyway?" Du Guyan looked in the direction the four elders of the Snake People tribe had left and nodded. "That's right, since we all feel that Sister Medusa will become a member of our sister sooner or later, why not do a favor in advance?" After Du Guyan and Yi Lingling reached a consensus, they also didn't rush to find Qilin, but instead went to find Xiao Yixian first. Unsurprisingly, Xiao Yixian agreed without much consideration. Because in Xiao Yixian's view, although Queen Medusa was full of beauty and temperament, if she took a medicinal pill, there was a high probability she wouldn't even compare to her. But it didn't matter, her talent wasn't as good as her own. After the three women reached a consensus, they didn't go to find Qilin, but instead went to find Queen Medusa. Just like that, one day, half a month later, Queen Medusa, having made up her mind, pushed open the door of the palace where Qilin lived. Amidst Qilin's surprised voice, Queen Medusa appeared incredibly dominant, keeping Qilin pinned beneath her throughout the entire process. On the marriage record of the flowers, the name of Medusa flickered with light. Chapter 287, Dozong, Queen Medusa. It was not until Queen Medusa left her name on the marriage record of the flowers and felt the sensation of being endowed with luck that she gradually caught a glimpse of the mysterious tip of the iceberg that was Qilin. One must know that those protected by luck do not merely experience better fortune, they also gain several invisible benefits. And the most important of these is undoubtedly the ability for those on the marriage record of the flowers to exist without any bottleneck until they cultivate to the golden immortal realm. Queen Medusa had been stuck at the peak of the Dohuang realm for 20 or 30 years, not because of poor aptitude, but because every member of the Snake People tribe has a soul of a snake-type demonic beast implanted within their body upon birth. With the help of this snake-type demonic beast soul, the Snake People have an incredibly fast cultivation speed in the early stages. Of course, implanting a demonic beast soul also carries significant drawbacks. That is, when a snake person cultivates to the realm that the implanted snake-type demonic beast soul had during its lifetime, they will encounter shackles and struggle to achieve a breakthrough. What was implanted in Queen Medusa at birth was the soul of a peak 6th-rank demonic beast, the purple nether flame snake. This is why Queen Medusa reached the peak of the Dohuang realm early on but delayed a long time in making a breakthrough to the Dozong realm. Of course, Queen Medusa's own accumulation was absolutely sufficient, so the moment she entered the marriage record of the flowers, her breakthrough to the Dozong realm became a natural result. On the massive bed, Queen Medusa was covered by a thin gold-threaded quilt, her smooth and delicate long legs exposed, while lingering shock remained in her eyes. She had never imagined that the Dozong bottleneck that had plagued her for over 20 or 30 years would be broken through just like that. If that was the case, did she still need to risk evolution using the heavenly flame? Queen Medusa couldn't help but think this to herself. As the saying goes, the first drumbeat rouses the spirit, the second tires it, and the third exhausts it. At first, Queen Medusa was trapped by the Dozong bottleneck, while the Snake People tribe faced danger from all sides. Therefore, Queen Medusa had no choice but to choose to stake everything, even knowing that using a heavenly flame to achieve a breakthrough was a life-or-death gamble, she had to give it a try. But now, Queen Medusa, having already achieved a breakthrough to the Dozong realm, no longer had the intention to continue evolving using the heavenly flame. Of course, none of this was important to Queen Medusa right now. What she found most difficult to face now was actually the awakened Qilin. Looking at the composed Qilin, even Queen Medusa felt incredibly conflicted and ashamed at this very moment. But she was Queen Medusa after all, after just a moment, she had already recovered. Why should she feel ashamed? What she did was merely to borrow his seed. Qilin was young yet possessed unfathomable strength, his talent went without saying. Her child would surely inherit his talent and become the next ruler of the Snake People tribe. Thinking of this, Queen Medusa regained her calm and said indifferently, "You helped me achieve a breakthrough to the Dozong realm, so the green lotus core flame is of no use to me anymore. Consider it a reward and take it." Of course, this reward might not be enough, but it is currently the best the Snake People tribe can offer. Qilin, however, shook his head and said, "No, you are wrong. The best thing the Snake People tribe can offer has never been any heavenly flame, but rather, it is you, Your Majesty the Queen." After speaking, Qilin, amidst Queen Medusa's blushing face, tackled her down once again. Meanwhile, at the edge of the Tager Desert, 4 figures streaked rapidly across the sky. "Ji Yuhi, are you sure there really is a heavenly flame in the Tager Desert?" One of them, a burly middle-aged man, said in a deep voice. And the Ji Yuhi he spoke of was a scholarly-looking middle-aged man. And this name, I fear, was known to almost everyone in the entire Jama Empire. After all, he was the only 6th-rank alchemist in the current Jama Empire. Known by the nickname, Pill King. Besides Pill King Ji Yuhi, among the 4 figures, one person wore a white robe, their face obscured. As for the other 2, they were also prominent figures in the Jama Empire. The burly middle-aged man was the Lion King Yanxi, one of the 10 strongest in the Jama Empire, while the lean, white-bearded old man was the Windwalker, Feng Li, also one of the 10 strongest in the Jama Empire. Ji Yuhi looked confident and said calmly and composedly, "That is natural, my perception will absolutely not be wrong. Not long ago, I detected a trace of a heavenly flame's aura from the direction of the Tager Desert. Through investigation, I also learned that a great battle occurred near Stone Desert City in the Tager Desert, and the protagonist of that battle was none other than that snake people tribe queen who strikes fear into the surrounding nations, Queen Medusa." What? Could the heavenly flame be with Queen Medusa? Yanshi's pupils shrank slightly, full of shock. As everyone knows, the snake people tribe has cold attributes. If they were to swallow a violent, miraculous object of heaven and earth like a heavenly flame, they would be tired of living. Mentioning Queen Medusa, a look of gravity appeared on the faces of Ji Yuhi and the other three. After all, this queen of the snake people tribe had a fierce reputation and was not someone to be trifled with. To forcibly seize the heavenly flame from her hands, relying only on the four of them, they were likely not qualified enough. Fortunately, Ji Yuhi had long been prepared. Facing the inquiries of Yanshi and the others, he said confidently, "Everyone, rest assured. This trip only requires you to safely escort me to the Snake People Holy City, leave the rest to me. In addition, regardless of whether we obtain the heavenly flame on this trip, upon our return, the rewards I promised you all will remain the same." Yanshi and Feng Li both laughed upon hearing this. "Ha ha ha, Pill King, rest assured. Since we have agreed to help you obtain the heavenly flame, whether it is climbing a mountain of blades or descending into a sea of fire, we will accompany you to the end." Beneath the white robe, Yun also nodded slightly. She was Ji Yuhi's trump card for this trip. Ji Yuhi promised to refine a purple crystal pill for Nalan Yanran as a reward, which was why she agreed to accompany Ji Yuhi on this trip. Seeing this, Ji Yuhi was in high spirits. If he could obtain the heavenly flame from Queen Medusa, with the enhancement of the heavenly flame, he might be able to attempt a breakthrough to a 7th rank alchemist in just a few short years. As for whether this trip would be in vain, Ji Yuhi was not worried. Since he dared to come, he naturally had full confidence. After receiving the news that Queen Medusa had obtained the heavenly flame, he had flipped through numerous ancient books and finally guessed Queen Medusa's intention. She actually wanted to rely on the heavenly flame to forcibly break through the Dozong shackles. How insane this was, it was absolutely a life or death gamble. Therefore, Ji Yuhi had brought 2 6th rank Doling pills and 1 7th rank transformation pill to exchange for the heavenly flame from Queen Medusa. There is no need to elaborate on the Doling pill, it can help a Dowong achieve a breakthrough by 1 realm. And the transformation pill, even among 7th rank medicinal pills, is an extremely high level existence. It can allow a demonic beast with a long lifespan to completely shed its beast form, and while possessing a long lifespan, also gain human talent. If she possessed the transformation pill, then Queen Medusa would have a chance to achieve a breakthrough to the Dozong realm even without relying on the heavenly flame, and without any risk to her life. Therefore, Ji Yuhi did not think Queen Medusa could refuse such a temptation. However, when the 4 of them arrived at the Snake People Holy City and saw Queen Medusa walking on air, they were all dumbfounded. Walking on air. Queen Medusa had actually achieved a breakthrough to the Dozong realm. Chapter 288, A Woman's Competitive Nature, Ji Yuhi's Disappointment. How is this possible? Queen Medusa has actually broken through to Dozong. Could it be that in such a short period of time, she not only devoured the heavenly flame but also successfully survived? Ji Yuhi muttered to himself, his face filled with disbelief. The moment Feng Li and Yanshi saw Queen Medusa walking through the air, their faces turned equally pale. Although the 2 of them had come to the Snake People Holy City at Ji Yuhi's invitation to find Queen Medusa and trade for the heavenly flame. If they had known beforehand that Queen Medusa had already broken through to Dozong, they wouldn't have dared to make this trip even if they were given 10 times the courage. Meanwhile, Yun, who was clad in white robes, fixed her gaze on the young figure standing beside Queen Medusa in the sky. "Your Excellency Qilin. Why would he appear in the Snake People Holy City? Could the reason Queen Medusa broke through to Dozong actually be Your Excellency Qilin's doing?" The moment she saw Qilin, a guess arose in Yun's heart. After all, Queen Medusa had been stuck at the peak of the Dohuang level for 20 to 30 years without breaking through. Why hadn't she broken through sooner or later, but chose to do so at this exact moment? But if she had Qilin's help, then everything made sense. She believed Qilin had the means to do so. Furthermore, Qilin also had the motive. After all, back when Qilin was still at the Cloud Mist sect, Yun had already formed some judgments about his character. He was definitely a philandering man, even though he treated every one of his women very well. Meanwhile, Queen Medusa's beauty was renowned across the country surrounding the Tager Desert, and her temperament and appearance were said to be rare in the mortal world. From this perspective, it was not surprising that she could attract Qilin here. However, having guessed the reason, Yun inexplicably felt a trace of depression. Although Queen Medusa was famously beautiful, she, as the sect master of the Cloud Mist sect, did not seem to be too lacking either. Yet, she had clearly not caught Qilin's eye, otherwise. Of course, Yun would not throw herself at Qilin just because he had the ability to help her increase her strength. But not being noticed by Qilin, didn't that also imply she wasn't charming enough? As everyone knew, women valued their own charm very highly and possessed a certain competitive nature, and even Yun was no exception. But at the thought of Queen Medusa's peerless and unparalleled beauty, even Yun had to admit that she was inferior to Queen Medusa. Aside from Yun, Ji Yuhi, Feng Li, and Yanshi had also noticed Qilin. Seeing him stepping through the void realm, their faces were filled with equal shock. The Snake People tribe actually had another Dozong. No, that's not right. He might not necessarily be a Dozong of the Snake People tribe, but by the look of it, even if he isn't, he definitely has a very deep relationship with them. Furthermore, a thought stirred in Ji Yuhi's mind. He had never believed that Queen Medusa could break through to Dozong by relying on the heavenly flame. Now, Qilin's appearance undoubtedly led him to guess that Queen Medusa's breakthrough to Dozong was inextricably linked to this young man before him. However, how could Queen Medusa have convinced the person before her to help her break through to Dozong? Aside from the heavenly flame, Ji Yu he could not think of any other bargaining chips the snake people tribe possessed. High above the snake people holy city, Queen Medusa's slightly narrow eyes looked coldly at the four people before her. She said indifferently, "Gentlemen, you are indeed very bold. Do you not know that this is the holy city of my snake people tribe? Or is it that you wish to die?" Hearing this, the faces of Ji Yu He, Feng Li, and Yan Shi changed abruptly. The latter two almost turned and fled on the spot, but fortunately, their reason overcame their fear. Fleeing now would only make them look guilty, and it would be a near certain death sentence. Ji Yu He took a deep breath, cupped his hands in a salute to Queen Medusa, and spoke with a trace of respect in his tone. "I beg your majesty the queen's forgiveness." Having said that, Ji Yu He pointed to the three people beside him and said, "The reason the four of us traveled thousands of miles to the snake people holy city is only because we heard your majesty obtain a heavenly flame near Stone Desert City and thus wished to make a trade with your majesty. These three beside me only came here with me upon my invitation." Hearing Ji Yu He's words, Feng Li and Yan Shi carefully cast their gazes toward Queen Medusa. On the other side, Queen Medusa smiled coldly upon hearing this. "Your information is indeed well informed." Upon hearing these words, Ji Yu He's eyes lit up, but when his peripheral vision caught Qilin, he sighed softly. If things were as he expected, the heavenly flame had probably already been handed over to this person by Queen Medusa. However, despite thinking so, Ji Yu He was still unwilling to give up. It could only be said that a heavenly flame was an irresistible temptation for any alchemist. Therefore, relying on his skills and boldness, Ji Yu He continued to address Queen Medusa, "Your Majesty, as far as I know, the snake people tribe possesses a cold attribute, making the heavenly flame useless to keep. If your Majesty is willing, I can offer 2 Doling pills plus 1 transformation pill to trade for that heavenly flame with you. Although you have already broken through to Dozong, your clansmen surely still have use for the transformation pill. If nurtured properly, it will undoubtedly produce another Dozong expert in the future. What do you think?" Ji Yu He could be said to be extremely sincere, especially when he mentioned trading with the transformation pill, shocking even Feng Li, Yan Shi, and Yun Yun beside him. After all, the transformation pill was a peak tier 7th rank medicinal pill. Medicinal pills of this grade had not been seen in the Jama Empire for 100 years, and even Ji Yu He himself was only a 6th rank alchemist. A flash of surprise could not help but cross Queen Medusa's eyes as she looked at Ji Yu He. She had also not expected Ji Yu He to actually be able to produce a transformation pill. If it weren't for Qilin, and if she had also broken through to Dozong, perhaps she would have taken out the heavenly flame to trade with Ji Yu He. But now, the green lotus core flame had already been promised by her to Qilin, so she naturally could not trade with Ji Yu He. Not interested, the heavenly flame has already been promised to someone else. Leave quickly. If I find out that you are acting presumptuously within the snake people territory, do not blame me for hunting you down to the ends of the earth." Queen Medusa said indifferently. Ji Yu He's expression darkened upon hearing this. Feng Li and Yan Shi both breathed a collective sigh of relief. Fortunately, this trip had been a false alarm. Just as Ji Yu He was preparing to take his leave, Qilin suddenly smiled and spoke. "Sect Leader Yun, we meet again." He had merely seen an acquaintance and was calling out to greet her. After all, they knew each other, and he had even stayed at the Cloud Mist sect for a few days, so Qilin naturally could not just pretend not to see Yun Yun. Although Yun Yun had not expected Qilin to suddenly greet her, she still respectfully lifted her hood, revealing her elegant and refined face. Then, under the shocked gazes of Ji Yu He and the other two, Yun Yun cupped her hands toward Qilin and smiled faintly. "Greetings, Your Excellency Qilin." Chapter 289, Arrival of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun. Seeing this, Queen Medusa also cast a surprised glance at Yun Yun. After seeing her face clearly, she couldn't help but sneer coldly, a wave of inexplicable irritation rising in her heart. Ji Yu He and the other two were shocked. They also hadn't expected that Yun Yun actually knew the mysterious Dozong standing beside Queen Medusa. Although they didn't know how Yun Yun knew this mysterious expert, as long as they were acquainted, there might still be a turning point regarding the matter of the heavenly flame. After all, anyone with a discerning eye could see that when Queen Medusa said she had promised the heavenly flame to someone else, it must have been promised to this mysterious Dozong. If the other party was not an alchemist, he might still be able to trade for the heavenly flame from him. Ji Yu He thought to himself. "I didn't expect that we would meet again after only half a month," Qilin said with a smile. Yun Yun nodded. She also hadn't expected such a coincidence, that she would meet Qilin again in the Snake People tribe. However, upon seeing Qilin, her teacher's advice couldn't help but surface in her mind, and a blush involuntarily appeared on her cheeks. But this blush was quickly hidden by Yun Yun. Her expression returned to indifference as she began to introduce Ji Yu He and the other two to Qilin. "Your Excellency Qilin, this is Grand Master Ji Yu He, the honorary elder of our Cloud Mist sect. At the same time, he is also the only 6th rank alchemist in the Jama Empire to date." Seeing this, Ji Yu He hurriedly cupped his hands in a salute towards Qilin. "Ji Yu He greets Your Excellency Qilin." Qilin nodded casually, then listened as Yun Yun introduced Feng Li and Yan Shi one after another. Seeing that Yun Yun and Qilin knew each other, Queen Medusa did not immediately expel them, but instead said, "Since they are acquaintances of Qilin, they are guests of my Snake People tribe. Come in." After speaking, Queen Medusa waved her hand and led everyone into the Snake People holy city. Yun Yun and Ji Yu He remained relatively calm, while Feng Li and Yan Shi followed cautiously behind them. On the way, it happened that Xiao Yi Xian came out of seclusion, her cultivation having reached a higher level. When Xiao Yi Xian saw Yun Yun, a flash of surprise also crossed her eyes, but she still smiled and greeted her. Yun Yun also dared not be negligent. She was very clear that this quiet and stunningly beautiful woman before her was also an unfathomably terrifying expert. Her strength was something even her teacher, who had reached the Dozong realm, could not see through. She was at least a high-level Dozong. Afterwards, Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and Qing Lin also arrived one after another. Seeing Qilin surrounded by beautiful women again, and each one a rare beauty in this world, even Yun Yun couldn't help but be tongue-tied. This Your Excellency Qilin is truly a romantic and free-spirited person. Of course, if it weren't for Qilin's face and his powerful strength, his image in Yun Yun's eyes would probably just be that of a romantic playboy. At the banquet, Ji Yuhi intended to get close to Qilin, but what made him completely despair was that Qilin was also an alchemist, and his alchemy skills were far superior to his own. Sometimes, a casual remark from him was enough to make Ji Yuhi feel a sense of sudden enlightenment. Thinking of this, Ji Yuhi sighed deeply. The heavenly flame was definitely out of the question, but being able to befriend an alchemist with profound alchemy skills could be considered a worthwhile trip. Subsequently, Ji Yuhi treated Qilin as a senior in alchemy and began to frequently ask him for advice. The atmosphere at the banquet was quite good, until a booming sound suddenly appeared above the Snake People holy city, followed by a suffocating aura that swept over like mercury, covering the sky and earth. In an instant, the entire Snake People holy city shook. Countless Snake People were pressed down by this terrifying aura until they couldn't breathe, prostrating on the ground. Even the people in the holy hall, except for Qilin and Xiao Yixian who were unaffected, all felt this terrifying aura and their expressions changed drastically. Yanxi and Feng Li only felt that their luck was poor. Had they known this trip to the Snake People tribe would cause such turmoil, they would never have come, even if it killed them. Unfortunately, it was too late for regrets now. Ji Yuhi and Yun Yun were shocked in their hearts. If just the released aura was this terrifying, how powerful must the person himself be? When did the Snake People tribe provoke such an expert? Queen Medusa, Du Guyan, and the others had already guessed the identity of the newcomer. Heavenly Serpent Mansion. Although they were also shocked by the powerful strength of the person from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, when they saw Qilin, whose expression remained calm, a sense of relief suddenly welled up in their hearts. Qilin slowly stood up, his gaze looking into the distance. Making such a big fuss on someone else's territory is not very polite. If one does not return the favor, it is impolite. I will also let you taste the feeling of being suppressed by someone's aura. After Qilin finished speaking, amidst the shocked gazes of Ji Yuhi and the others, his robes billowed and rustled. The next second, an even more terrifying aura, like a dormant dragon suddenly awakening, erupted from within Qilin's body. The pressure spread out like a raging storm. In the Great Hall, everyone felt this earth-shaking and terrifying pressure from Qilin, and their souls trembled, but apart from that, there was no other impact. This was naturally due to Qilin's control. But the Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert above the Snake People holy city did not have it so easy. This Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert was a Grand Elder of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, a Dozun-level expert. After learning that the triple jade green snake flower pupils had appeared in the Snake People tribe of the Tager Desert, out of fear of unexpected complications, he personally took action, even going so far as to open up a spatial channel, all to arrive at the Snake People tribe as quickly as possible. However, having just arrived at the Snake People tribe, before he could display his divine might, he was dealt a head-on blow by the pressure from Qilin. Under Qilin's raging storm-like pressure, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun, who had just stepped out of the spatial channel, was struck as if by lightning, his body staggered, and he fell straight down from the air. One must know that Qilin's current strength has already reached the 6th turn Dozun. Even without relying on any other enhancements, he could still suppress an ordinary Dozun with just his aura. Ho, how is this possible? When did the Snake People tribe gain such an expert? Wasn't it said that the strongest person in the Snake People tribe was only a peak Dohuang? The Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun nearly vomited blood from anger. What were the two people who sent back the information doing? Such important intelligence was not reported. Or could it be that this expert was also attracted by the news of the triple jade green snake flower pupils? The Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert was more inclined towards the latter. Meanwhile, in the main hall of the Snake People tribe, due to the Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert being injured, the pressure lingering on everyone also dissipated. Qilin smiled faintly and said, let's go and take a look at this uninvited guest together. After speaking, Qilin took a step, and had already appeared at the entrance of the main hall. Xiao Yixian followed closely behind, her white clothes fluttering, full of immortal qi. Queen Medusa witnessed their backs, a flash of unwillingness crossing her eyes, and she also followed. Yun Yun's heart was shaken, her beautiful eyes wide with amazement. Chapter 290, Minor Punishment, Deepening Feelings. Snake People Holy City. Blood spilled from the corner of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert's mouth, and his aura was withered, yet his expression looked filled with tension. When his gaze noticed Qilin and his group walking slowly from the distant horizon, the expression on his face froze instantly. In his line of sight, the Qilin walking at the very front was like a prehistoric behemoth shrouded in shadows, bearing fangs and sharp claws, with a terrifying pressure emanating from his entire body that had almost materialized. Gulp tilde. The Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, only one thought remained in his mind. Who exactly is this person? Thinking of how he had roamed the Northwest continent for decades, he had never heard of such an expert existing in the Northwest continent. Immediately, as the Heavenly Serpent Mansion expert thought about how he had so wantonly released his aura just now, and even wanted to give the Snake People tribe a show of force, cold sweat instantly broke out. His actions just now, he feared, had already offended this expert. What should I do now? The Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun's brain worked frantically, and he dared not harbor even the slightest thought of resistance in his heart. Because the terrifying pressure emanating from Qilin was far beyond even the strongest in the mansion, that Grand Elder who was a 5-star Dozun. At this thought, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun's body couldn't help but tremble slightly. You are the one who just released your aura to pressure the entire Snake People tribe. You were very imposing just now, weren't you? A 2-star Dozun, your strength is sufficient, but your bearing is lacking. Just as the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun was trembling with fear, a somewhat lazy voice suddenly rang in his ears. Looking up, the person speaking was still some distance away, but his voice had already traveled over. Being called out on his strength in a single sentence, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun did not feel the slightest surprise. And the people following behind Qilin, except for Xiao Yixian, instantly erupted in an uproar. Dozun. The person who came was actually a Dozun expert. One must know, the Cloud Mist sect's founding ancestral master, Yun Podian, was merely a Dozun expert. And what shocked them even more was this statement from Qilin. As if in his eyes, a 2-star Dozun was not worth mentioning. To not even hold a 2-star Dozun in his eyes, what level of expert was he? On the other side, hearing this, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun faced Qilin and his group, cupped his hands, and bowed. I am Supreme Elder Hizun of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. I disturbed you just now, and I hope you will forgive me, my lord. Qilin looked at the Heavenly Serpent Mansion Dozun bowing respectfully before him and smiled faintly. You act so ostentatiously and domineeringly. If I were not here today, I do not know what kind of disaster the Snake People tribe would have encountered. How could I spare you? Before the words had even faded, a surge of pressure like a monstrous wave erupted from within Qilin, suppressing Supreme Elder Hizun, causing him to stagger and his face to turn deathly pale. The next second, under the terrifying pressure like a monstrous wave, Supreme Elder Hizun's knees went weak in panic, and he bowed again, saying repeatedly, My lord, it is a misunderstanding, this is a misunderstanding. I only wanted to give the Snake People tribe a show of force, and incidentally let the triple jade green snake flower pupils witness my methods, so that she would willingly take me as her master and join my Heavenly Serpent Mansion to cultivate. I beg you to see the truth, my lord. Since I know that the triple jade green snake flower pupils is on good terms with the Snake People tribe, how could I truly do anything to the Snake People tribe? Wouldn't that be forcing the triple jade green snake flower pupils to turn against my Heavenly Serpent Mansion? Qilin's gaze lingered on Supreme Elder Hizun for a moment, then he said faintly, if that were not the case, you would already be dead. Although the Heavenly Serpent Mansion has some reputation in the Northwest continent, it does not work on me. Hearing this, Supreme Elder Hizun let out a long sigh of relief, and without paying attention, he slumped to the ground, radiating a sense of having survived a disaster. How dangerous, he had almost walked before the gates of hell. A moment later, he regained some composure, immediately climbed up from the ground, performed a deep bow to Qilin, and said respectfully, Thank you, my lord, for sparing my life. The people following beside Qilin, seeing this, all felt a sense of unreality. One must know, the person before them was a legendary Dozun expert, and behind him stood the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, which shook the Northwest continent. Yet even such a giant, who was unreachable in their eyes, could only submit and beg for mercy before Qilin, thanking him for sparing his life. What kind of Xuanwan is this? Facing Supreme Elder Hizun's thanks, Qilin shook his head faintly. The death penalty can be waived, but the living punishment cannot be avoided. Today, I will knock you down from the Dozun realm, a minor punishment to warn you, and to serve as a warning to others. In addition, I hope the Heavenly Serpent Mansion can also give me a satisfactory answer, otherwise, do not blame me for paying a visit. After speaking, Qilin raised his hand slightly, and a powerful suction force erupted from his palm. Supreme Elder Hizun let out a miserable scream, and the next second, he looked as if he had aged 20 or 30 years, and his aura withered accordingly. Qilin had perused countless cultivation techniques and dough techniques, and this dough technique he was currently using was called the Mysterious Attraction Absorbing Palm, an earth-rank high-grade dough technique that could destroy a person's foundation. If Qilin hadn't held back just now, it wouldn't have been as simple as Supreme Elder Hizun being knocked down from the Dozun realm. And Supreme Elder Hizun, whose strength had fallen to the 9-star Dozong, had no complaints about this. Because just when Qilin made his move, he deeply realized the gap between himself and Qilin. It was like fireflies compared to the bright moon, far out of reach. Having disturbed such an expert, being able to keep his life now was already the greatest fortune and misfortune. Supreme Elder Hizun, without even calming his aura, bowed and thanked Qilin. Thank you, my lord, for sparing my life. In addition, I will certainly keep your instructions in mind. Upon returning to the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, I will immediately prepare compensation, and I will certainly not disappoint you. After listening to Supreme Elder Hizun's sincere words, Qilin waved his hand lazily. All right, go. Remember, I do not wish to wait too long. Before leaving, Supreme Elder Hizun shouted, Please rest assured, my lord, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion's compensation will arrive in a few days. After speaking, Supreme Elder Hizun immediately flew up and, in the blink of an eye, had disappeared from the range of the Snake People Holy City. After Supreme Elder Hizun left, Qilin turned his head and smiled slightly at the crowd, who all had different expressions. The problem is solved, everyone go back. The banquet just now hasn't ended yet. After speaking, Qilin turned and walked towards the main hall. The crowd then followed closely behind with a slightly dazed look, their expressions seeming to say, it's over just like that. In the main hall, the banquet continued. But after such an incident, except for Xiao Yixian, Du Guyan, and the other women, who else could act like nothing had happened? With a great god like Qilin present, the atmosphere at the banquet had obviously become much more reserved. Even Ji Yuhi, who was extremely obsessed with alchemy, did not dare to ask Qilin about alchemy casually anymore. And women such as Yun Yun and Queen Medusa had sparkling eyes, filled with brilliant colors. Especially Queen Medusa, although she was extremely proud, and even though she had already lost her chastity to Qilin, the pride in her bones had never allowed her to develop too many feelings for Qilin. But now, more and more strange feelings for Qilin were growing within her heart. After the banquet ended, Yun Yun, Ji Yuhi, and the other two did not continue to stay in the Snake People tribe. With a supreme being like Qilin present, apart from Yun Yun, who had a detached temperament, the other three all felt uncomfortable. Qilin was too strong, so strong that they did not even dare to entertain the slightest thought of trying to build a connection with him. Not to mention the three of them, even the 4 Picto Huang elders of the Snake People tribe felt a sense of trepidation in their hearts. They knew Qilin was strong, but they hadn't expected him to be this strong. Qilin's strength made them feel a lingering fear regarding their recent actions. Back then, they had complacently assumed they had guessed Qilin's preferences, so in order to curry favor with him, they had instigated the queen to seek offspring from Qilin. However, at the time, they hadn't considered that if Qilin didn't like their self-righteous behavior, wouldn't that have needlessly brought disaster upon them? Fortunately, they had gambled correctly. Afterwards, the four of them still felt uneasy and indirectly inquired with the queen about Qilin's opinion of them. Upon learning that Qilin did not intend to hold it against them, they finally put their hanging hearts at ease. And on the 5th day after Supreme Elder Hizun left, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion sent people again. Outside the Snake People Holy City, a silver spatial passage suddenly tore open, and 4 figures slowly walked out from within. One of them was none other than the Supreme Elder Hizun, whose realm had been knocked down. As for the other 3, each of them possessed the strength of a Dozun, representing the true foundation of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. As a hegemonic force in the Northwest continent, although there had been faint signs of decline in recent years, its foundation could still not be underestimated. Among the 4 from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, the leader and strongest of them had even reached the level of a 5-star Dozun. Such a lineup could be considered first class even in the Central Plains. However, with so many experts gathered, they were still extremely cautious in front of the Snake People tribe, not even daring to set the exit of the spatial passage above the Snake People Holy City, for fear of disturbing Qilin, this peerless expert. After all, having been able to cultivate to their current realm, as long as they weren't hot-headed, they were quite capable of assessing the situation. According to the information sent back by Supreme Elder Hizun, this mysterious expert who had suddenly appeared in the Snake People tribe had unfathomable strength, and it was not impossible that he had reached the legendary Demi-Saint realm. Such an expert might not have been taken seriously during the heyday of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. But in recent years, experts in the Heavenly Serpent Mansion had fallen one after another, and with no successors, only one 5-star Dozun remained to hold up the facade. How could they dare to provoke such an expert? Upon arriving at the Snake People tribe, the 5-star Dozun leading the Heavenly Serpent Mansion immediately focused his chi into his dantian. Qing Yuan of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion requests an audience. I beg for your permission, my lord. A voice carrying a respectful tone traveled from outside the Snake People tribe into the palace. Listening to this voice, Qilin chuckled to the women beside him. The gift givers have arrived. Although the apology gift sent by the Heavenly Serpent Mansion was nothing to him, even if he didn't care for it, he could give it to the women, or at the very least, distribute some to the Snake People tribe. After all, Medusa was his woman, and he could take care of her tribe whenever he was able to. Granted. Qilin spoke indifferently, and then his voice traveled out from the palace and into the ears of the 4 from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion. Soon, 4 figures flew out from the Snake People tribe and led the 4 from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion into the palace. And these 4 figures were none other than the 4 elders of the Snake People tribe. The 4 of them knew their place. Although Qilin could afford to disregard the experts of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, they could not. Although they could use Qilin's presence to act like a fox borrowing the tiger's might, who knew if doing so would cause Qilin to be displeased. Now, with a supreme being like Qilin as their backing, the rise of the Snake People tribe was imminent, so they had to be even more cautious. The 4 from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion did not underestimate the 4 elders of the Snake People tribe just because of their low strength, which made the 4 elders feel extremely proud. This was what it meant to enjoy the shade of a big tree. After the 4 of them saw Qilin, Qing Yuan, the strongest leader of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, only glanced at Qilin once before immediately feeling glad about the decision they had made. That was close. The Heavenly Serpent Mansion had nearly faced total annihilation. The reason for this was that Qing Yuan discovered that even with his 5-star Dozun strength, when facing Qilin, he still felt a sense of insignificance. It was too terrifying. The person before him was definitely a legendary saint. Otherwise, even an ordinary peak Dozun would not be able to give him such an intense feeling. Subsequently, Qing Yuan immediately took out the prepared apology gift. In fact, regarding the apology gift for Qilin, Qing Yuan had prepared 3 portions in total, and after meeting Qilin, he would offer the corresponding gift based on Qilin's strength. If Qilin were merely a 7 or 8-star Dozun, or even just a 9-star Dozun, then they would naturally only need to make a token gesture. But if Qilin's strength were between the 1st and 9th turn, such strength would have already undergone a qualitative leap compared to an ordinary 9-star Dozun, and even if they exhausted the entire foundation of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, they would be unable to resist, so naturally, they would need to pay more. And if Qilin's strength exceeded the limits of a Dozun, then even if the Heavenly Serpent Mansion had to give everything, they must not let him develop even the slightest ill will toward the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, otherwise, it would inevitably face the danger of collapse. Of course, if Qilin truly exceeded the limits of a Dozun, even if it were only a saint, then for the Heavenly Serpent Mansion, there would be plenty of room for maneuvering. If managed well, they might even be able to cling to this powerful thigh. Obviously, in Qing Yuan's eyes, Qilin was exactly that 3rd type. The reason Qing Yuan could be so certain was that his teacher had been a 5-turn Dozun during his lifetime. Yet the feeling Qilin gave Qing Yuan was far beyond what his teacher had given back then. Therefore, Qing Yuan guessed that Qilin was very likely a saint who had surpassed the Dozun realm. The Heavenly Serpent Mansion's apology gift was extremely abundant, to the point that even Qilin felt a bit surprised. After all, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion had been in decline for so many years, and there were barely even a few decent experts left in the mansion. However, no matter what, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion was a force that had been founded for thousands of years. During its heyday, it had dominated the Northwest continent, and there had been more than one Dosheng in the mansion, so its foundation was naturally unfathomable. There were naturally not many medicinal pills, as any that could truly enhance strength would have long since been consumed by the experts of the mansion. But for things like medicinal herbs, monster cores, and various heaven and earth treasure, the Heavenly Serpent Mansion had quite a collection. Besides this, there was also the legacy of various cultivation technique and secret arts. Among them, there was even a heaven-rank low-tier cultivation technique and a heaven-rank low-tier dough technique. Although these could not compare to the cultivation technique that Qilin had obtained from the Shao family in the Gate of Life and Death. But they were already extremely rare. After all, looking across the entire fighting Qi continent, forces that possess collections of heaven-rank cultivation technique and Do technique could be said to be very few. Seeing the Heavenly Serpent Mansion being so sincere, Qilin naturally had no intention of continuing to hold it against them. This also caused the four from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion to heave a sigh of relief. The only pity was that Qilin did not seem to look at the Heavenly Serpent Mansion with new eyes because of this. It seemed that if they wanted to cling to this powerful thigh, they would undoubtedly need to find another way to go about it. For example, the Snake People Tribe. Chapter 292, Xiao Xuan'er shows her cards to the Xiao family. After the four members of the Heavenly Serpent Mansion left, Qilin stayed with the Snake People Tribe for another period of time. During this time, Qilin distributed a portion of the compensation gifts sent by the Heavenly Serpent Mansion to the Snake People Tribe. Although the compensation gifts from the Heavenly Serpent Mansion meant nothing to him, any single item taken out was considered a treasure to the Snake People Tribe. Not to mention the cultivation techniques and Do techniques, even just those rare medicinal herbs, after being refined by Qilin, had not a single shred of medicinal power wasted and returned into medicinal pills. It was only then that the Snake People Tribe truly realized how blissful it was to have the backing of a powerful alchemist. Especially since this alchemist, Qilin, never made any mistakes, every single herb was utilized reasonably. Because of these medicinal pills, the four elders of the Snake People Tribe all achieved a breakthrough to the Dozong level. The other tribal leaders of the Snake People Tribe also achieved breakthroughs to Do Huang, with the best among them reaching the level of a 3-star or even 4-star Do Huang. Additionally, a large number of mid-level powerhouses emerged within the Snake People Tribe, with countless great Do masters and Dolings. And most crucially, that was not all. Qilin had once accidentally obtained the 10,000 Beast Spirit Fire, ranked 22nd on the Strange Fire ranking list, in the Magical Beast Mountain range. One must know that the reason strange fires are so highly regarded, besides their power, is that every strange fire possesses various kinds of abilities. For example, the 10,000 Beast Spirit Fire is condensed from the souls and bloodlines of 10,000 beasts. Although it is ranked at the bottom of the Strange Fire ranking list, it can help demonic beasts temper their spirit power and evolve their bloodlines. Normally, although this process cannot be called a brush with death, it is still incredibly dangerous. After all, strange fire is the most violent thing in the world. But the 10,000 Beast Spirit Fire was facing Qilin, who possesses the Luding Divine Fire. In front of Qilin, this most violent natural wonder of the world was as obedient as a well-behaved baby. Qilin did not even need to refine it to perfectly control it. It was precisely because of the 10,000 Beast Spirit Fire that Qilin gathered the Snake People Tribe in one place and, with one burst of fire, completely transformed them all. While not everyone became a genius, their potential definitely increased by a significant margin. It could be said that for a very long time, the Snake People Tribe would not lack powerhouses. For this, the entire Snake People Tribe was deeply grateful to Qilin. And the four elders of the Snake People Tribe were even more glad that they had taken a gamble back then. Although there were risks, fortunately, they had bet correctly. The Snake People Tribe would rise because of Qilin. Besides the Snake People Tribe, Qilin did not favor one over the other. Du Guyan, Yi Lingling, and the other women all had their own gains. Even Xiao Yixian, with the help of inexhaustible medicinal herbs, successfully achieved a breakthrough to a second-grade alchemist. It could only be said that although Xiao Yixian had some talent in alchemy, compared to her cultivation talent, it was simply a world of difference. Additionally, Qinglin also had significant gains. The Heavenly Serpent Mansion indeed possessed cultivation techniques and Do techniques suitable for the triple jade green snake flower pupils. And based on these cultivation techniques and Do techniques, Qilin created a brand new set of techniques that were more suitable for Qinglin and even more powerful. After finishing all this, Qilin stayed with the Snake People Tribe for nearly another month before setting off again. This also caused the four elders of the Snake People Tribe, who had realized that Queen Medusa was not pregnant, to sigh deeply, feeling extremely regretful. And just as Qilin was setting off from the Snake People Tribe, in Wudin City of the Jiama Empire, a youth dressed in a black robe officially embarked on his journey of experience. This person was none other than Xiao Yan, who was setting out from the Xiao family. The current Xiao Yan was different from the original work. The rise of the Xiao family made Xiao Yan's cultivation speed even faster than in the original work. Most importantly, in this life, Yao Lao did not have him cultivate the flame mantra after he reached the breakthrough to Do practitioner. Because after Xiao Yan rose again, the Xiao family had also informed him of the family's secrets. And the highest grade technique the Xiao family currently possessed was the very one that Xiao Zhan had once cultivated. A heaven-rank high-level cultivation technique. Faced with such a technique, although Yao Lao very much hoped that Xiao Yan would cultivate the flame mantra so that he could refine a new body for himself in the future, he also did not want to delay Xiao Yan. After all, no one knew if the flame mantra could truly evolve infinitely, and even if it could, swallowing strange fires was extremely dangerous. With a better option available, Yao Lao ultimately did not bring out the flame mantra. Just as he had once not wanted to pass the flame mantra to Han Feng. It was not that Yao Lao was unwilling, but because the flame mantra had too much uncertainty, and cultivating the flame mantra was extremely dangerous. And Xiao Yan, who had embarked on a completely different path from the original work, had already reached the level of a 4-star Do master in less than 2 years since his engagement was called off. Even Yao Lao was fully confident that Xiao Yan would achieve a breakthrough to Doling before the 3-year agreement. Meanwhile, at the Xiao family. During this period, a major event also occurred in the Xiao family. That was Xiao Xuan'er taking the initiative to find Xiao Zhan, choosing to show her cards, and changing her name back to Ji Yuzuner. After learning of Ji Yuzuner's background, Xiao Zhan was greatly shocked. Although deep down he did not really want to hand over the Xiao family's heirloom jade, he was also very clear that the Xiao family currently did not have much room for choice. If it weren't for the fact that the Ji Yu clan still cared about their reputation, they probably would have used force against the Xiao family long ago. Upon learning that the Xiao family still had the Hun clan as an enemy, and that the Hun clan had never given up on searching for the Xiao family all these years, Xiaozan finally decided to hand over the Tuosh ancient Emperor Jade in exchange for the Jiyu clan sending people to protect them. After obtaining the ancient jade, Jiyu Zuner did not immediately send the message that she had received the ancient jade back to the Jiyu clan, but instead first used a communication token to contact Qilin. Having not seen brother Qilin for so long, Jiyu Zuner was naturally thinking of him constantly. Especially when she thought about how Qilin was outside and would find a new sister for her every so often, Jiyu Zuner was furious. Since Qilin was familiar with the plot, he knew that Hun Tiandi had arranged backup plans within the ancient 8 clans. If Jiyu Zuner were to send the Tuosh ancient Emperor Jade back to the Jiyu clan, they would likely not be able to keep it. Since that was the case, it would be better for her to keep the Tuosh ancient Emperor Jade with her first. However, Qilin did not tell Jiyu Zuner explicitly, only asking her to keep the ancient jade with her. Although Jiyu Zuner did not know why, she still followed his instructions. Even her thoughts were quite wild, and she soon made a decision to go out and gain experience on the continent together with Zhu Zuqing and Huo Wu. Of course, her motive for gaining experience was not pure, she had been instigating the two of them to go find Qilin. Finally, it was not until the third day after Jiyu Zuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu left the Xiao family that the former used a special secret method to send the message that the ancient jade had been found back to the Jiyu clan. By the time Jiyu Yuan sent people to the Xiao family, Jiyu Zuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu had already disappeared without a trace. However, the Jiyu clan still dispatched a powerhouse to secretly protect the Xiao family. Although it was only a 9-star Dozun powerhouse, in the eyes of the Jiyu clan, such a powerhouse placed in the northwest continent was already enough to hold the fort. Chapter 293, Arriving at Jianan Academy. At the same time that Jiyu Zuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu left the Xiao family, Qilin and Xiao Yixian also left the Snake People tribe. Also leaving the Snake People tribe together were Medusa and Du Guyan and the others. However, they parted ways after leaving the Snake People tribe. Medusa, Du Guyan, and the others headed to the Cloud Mist sect, preparing to enter the Gate of Life and Death. Qilin and Xiao Yixian set off for the Black Corner region. Qilin had previously heard from his little maid, Shui Ling, that Jiyu Yuina had actually hidden her strength and run off to Jianan Academy to become a student of the Outer Academy. Shui Ling was with Jiyu Yuina, having also become a student of the Outer Academy at Jianan Academy. When he first heard about this from Shui Ling, Qilin couldn't help but laugh and cry at the same time. Since her injuries had healed, Jiyu Yuina's combat power had reached the God King level. After arriving in the Dupo world and converting her energy, she had left to become a Dozong, and after consuming the medicinal pill refined by Qilin, she had undergone another transformation, shedding her old self. When Qilin asked about it some time ago, Jiyu Yuina had already made a breakthrough to a 7-star Dozong. With such strength, in the entire Jianan Academy, apart from that wandering dean, only the 2 elders Qianbai could surpass her. Under such circumstances, why did Jiyu Yuina run to Jianan Academy? Upon asking, Qilin found out. It turned out that Jiyu Yuina did it purely on a whim, plus Jianan Academy was known as the #1 academy on the continent, so there must be many things worth learning there. Regarding Jiyu Yuina's explanation, although Qilin felt that she likely wouldn't learn much at Jianan Academy, when traveling, the process is what matters most. It was after hearing about their experiences that Qilin decided to travel to Jianan Academy as well. However, Jianan Academy was in the central region of the Black Corner region, more than 100,000 li away from the Jiamao Empire, and even for an ordinary Dozong to fly there, it would take some time. Of course, given Qilin's abilities and his insight into space, traveling from the Snake People tribe to Jianan Academy would only take a few minutes. However, doing so would undoubtedly mean missing out on much of the scenery on land. Therefore, Qilin and Xiao Yixian decided to travel by flying ship, enjoying the scenery along the way. Just as Qilin and Xiao Yixian were slowly making their way to Jianan Academy, 3 guests suddenly arrived at the Snake People tribe. What, brother Qilin is gone? When did he leave? Didn't you say he was still at the Snake People tribe a few days ago? Sounds of astonishment echoed throughout the Great Hall of the Snake People tribe. Upon learning that Qilin was not there, Jiyu Zuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu were all deeply disappointed. Jiyu Zuner was even more annoyed. If she had known brother Qilin would leave, she would have set off a few days earlier. Now, she had failed to catch up to brother Qilin again. The 4 elders of the Snake People tribe looked at the 3 women, each with their own unique charm, and couldn't help but sigh inwardly, as expected of Lord Qilin. Afterward, Jiyu Zuner furrowed her brows and asked again, 4 seniors, do you know where brother Qilin went after leaving the Snake People tribe? Zhu Zuqing and Huo Wu also turned their gazes toward the 4 elders. Seeing this, the 4 did not dare to hide anything and immediately said, we once heard Lord Qilin mention it casually, it seems the place he and Lady Xiao Yixian are going next is Jianan Academy. Jianan Academy. Jiyu Zuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu exchanged glances. The reputation of Jianan Academy was something not just Jiyu Zuner, but even Zhu Zuqing and Huo Wu had heard of. Jiyu Zuner asked in surprise, with brother Qilin's strength, what is he going to Jianan Academy for? Could it be to be a teacher? Huo Wu clapped her hands and said, that's actually possible. After all, hasn't Ah Lin worked as a teacher at Heaven Do Academy before? Zhu Zuqing nodded and said, since Zuner misses brother Qilin, let's make Jianan Academy our next stop. After hearing this, Huo Wu said earnestly, that's right, and we must go quickly, so we don't arrive a step too late again. Huo Wu was right, with the strength of brother Qilin and the others, I'm afraid it won't even take a day to get from here to Jianan Academy, Zhu Zuqing added immediately after. Afterwards, worried about missing Qilin again, the 3 of them, with the help of the 4 elders of the Snake People tribe, rented a Tier 4 flying demonic beast mount and flew toward Jianan Academy at the fastest speed possible. However, when the 3 arrived at Jianan Academy after half a month, they were thwarted again. Because after making some inquiries, they discovered that Qilin had not yet arrived at Jianan Academy. The three thought Qilin had changed his mind midway, but after contacting him, they realized that Qilin was still slowly enjoying the scenery along the way. Upon learning that the three, Zuner and the others, had gone to the Snake People tribe and then to Jianan Academy just to see him, Qilin was amused and helpless, but he also increased his speed a bit. He had originally wanted to enjoy the scenery along the way a bit more, but since that girl Zuner was so impatient to see him, he certainly couldn't keep her waiting too long. With Qilin accelerating, the journey that had originally taken over half a month to cover less than half of, was now traversed in just a few minutes. Looking at the clusters of buildings below, Qilin smiled at Xiao Yixian beside him and said, "This is Jianan Academy. Then let's go down." "All right." After speaking, the two immediately disappeared into the horizon. Meanwhile, inside the academy, a man wearing the Jianan Academy student uniform looked in the direction where Qilin and Xiao Yixian had disappeared and rubbed his eyes. Looking at the empty horizon, he muttered to himself, "Strange, could my eyes be blurred from cultivating recently? Why did I see two people in the sky just now?" On the other side, in the hinterland of Jianan Academy, inside a secluded and exquisite pavilion, an old man wearing a white robe with white hair and beard stood with his hands behind his back, a kind smile on his face. Behind him stood two other old men who looked slightly younger than him. One of them said with a smile, "Vice Dean, quite a few little freaks have joined our Jianan Academy during this period." The other chimed in from the side, "That's right. Not to mention Ji Yuina and Shui Ling from a few months ago, just yesterday, three peerless geniuses arrived at Jianan Academy. Especially one genius named Ji Zuner, although she is only 16, her strength has already reached the Doling level. I'm afraid even those monsters in the inner academy cannot compare to her." "What, such a thing? I was wondering why you two came rushing to me just as I came out of seclusion, so it turns out such geniuses have appeared in the academy." Vice Dean Hugan's body trembled slightly upon hearing this, and a look of shock appeared on his originally calm face. The two old men rubbed their hands and then said in a consultative tone, "Vice Dean, in my opinion, these three geniuses currently lack an excellent teacher. How about the three of us each teach one genius?" Vice Dean Hugan looked at the two with black lines on his face and retorted unceremoniously, "If you want to take them as disciples, you have to see if they agree." After speaking, Vice Dean Hugan shook his head at the two. The two people in front of him were both elders of the outer academy of Jianan Academy. They were sufficient to be teachers for ordinary students, but if it were true geniuses, absolutely no chance. Chapter 294, Seeing Zuner and Ziyan again. In the end, Vice Dean Hugan did not discourage the two. If they wanted to take on disciples, they could just go try it themselves. What if they succeeded? The final result was, of course, failure, as they were politely declined by the three women. In fact, if the three women hadn't met Ji Yuina and Shui Ling after entering Jianan Academy, they probably wouldn't even have considered joining the academy. In a quiet courtyard, the five women sat around a stone table, drinking tea, chatting, and exchanging insights on how to cultivate. Upon seeing Ji Yuina for the first time, even Ji Zuner couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. Although Zuner also possessed a beauty that could topple nations, she hadn't fully matured yet, and secondly, Ji Yuina's appearance and temperament were among the top three among all the women. After all, she had not yet consumed those medicinal pills capable of changing one's fundamental constitution. Just as they were conversing, a slightly lazy voice suddenly rang out. "I didn't expect to find you all here." The moment the voice fell, the women who were talking reacted instantly, stood up one after another, and surrounded him, their pretty faces filled with surprise and joy. "Brother Qilin. Ah Lin. Master." At this moment, even Ji Yuina, who was usually indifferent by nature, wore a faint smile on her cheeks. Qilin was surrounded by the women, his face smiling as he greeted them one by one. Afterward, Qilin looked at Ji Zuner and patted her head. "Zuner, we meet again." Ji Zuner pouted coquettishly, then said with a resentful expression, "That's right, it's been nearly 2 years, and Brother Qilin didn't even know to go to the Xiao family to visit Zuner. Is Zuner really that unlikable to Brother Qilin?" Although Qilin and Ji Zuner had been chatting through communication tokens during this period, compared to chatting via tokens, Ji Zuner wanted to express her longing to Qilin face to face. Qilin smiled and continued to pat Zuner's head, then said, "Zuner is so beautiful and cute, of course Brother Qilin likes you." Ji Zuner huffed lightly. "Brother Qilin is lying. If you like Zuner, why haven't you gone to the Xiao family to visit Zuner for so long?" Qilin smiled and said, "In the future, we still have countless long years ahead of us, so why bother calculating this year or two? Alright, let's not talk about this for now. Come and see the gifts I brought for each of you." After saying this, Qilin took out the gifts he had specially prepared for the women. For example, the gift Qilin prepared for Zuner was a medicinal pill he had refined by consuming many rare medicinal herbs. Because the medicinal efficacy of the top-tier herbs in the Dupo world was even more powerful than the immortal herbs of the Duluo continent, its effect was far stronger than the creation heaven-mending pill Qilin had once made for the other women. After Ji Zuner consumed it, she underwent a complete transformation. Her strength breakthrough to a 9-star Doling was actually the most insignificant effect. The greatest effect for Ji Zuner was the complete activation of the Dodi bloodline within her body. It could be said that the concentration of the Dodi bloodline in Ji Zuner's body now surpassed the divine rank, and she had even achieved a special physique in a unique way. She not only possessed a terrifying speed of cultivate, but also unparalleled combat power. Once she activated her clan mark, the power that erupted was incredibly formidable. After some testing, Ji Zuner, relying on her 9-star Doling strength, found that after activating her clan mark, a casual punch could erupt with power at the Do Huang level. Her combat power was evident. Besides Ji Zuner's gift, the gift Qilin prepared for Huowu was, naturally, a strange fire. Originally, his initial plan was to give the 10,000 beast spirit fire to Huowu, but later, Queen Medusa also gave the green lotus core flame to Qilin, so Qilin changed his mind and gave the green lotus core flame to Huowu. Upon learning of the preciousness of the strange fire, Huowu jumped up in excitement, overjoyed. And under Qilin's protection, she absorbed the green lotus core flame right on the spot. Although Huowu's strength was only that of a great Dough master, absorbing the green lotus core flame with this cultivation level was a matter of 9 deaths and 1 life. But who told her she still had Qilin? With Qilin's help, Huowu easily absorbed the green lotus core flame, and her strength leapt to a 3-star Douling. Additionally, Qilin also prepared gifts for Ji Yuina, Shuiling, and Zhu Zuqing. After receiving their gifts, the women were all overjoyed and showered Qilin with kisses. They were all like an old married couple, even the little maid who hadn't yet had a relationship with Qilin pecked him on the cheek with a blushing face. After giving the gifts, Qilin looked at the women curiously. How long do you plan to stay at Jianan Academy? After all, given the strength of the women, there was no need for them to continue staying at Jianan Academy. Ji Yuina said, let's stay for a while longer. I met an interesting little girl at Jianan Academy. I felt the Dragon Clan bloodline in her body as well, and what's more, this bloodline rank is even higher than mine. Qilin was slightly stunned upon hearing this. A little girl? Could it be Ziyan? But isn't this the Outer Academy? How did Sister Na get involved with Ziyan? Seeing Qilin's puzzled expression, Ji Yuina explained, when I first arrived at Jianan Academy, I was attracted by a wisp of dragon might that Ziyan inadvertently emitted, and then I met Ziyan in the mountains between the Outer Academy and the Inner Academy. According to her, her original form is a demonic beast, but she accidentally ate a transformation grass, which is why she turned into a human form. Speaking of Ziyan, a faint smile appeared on Ji Yuina's face as she said, she is a very interesting little girl, lively and cute, and very energetic. I like her very much. Shuiling nodded in agreement from the side and said, I have also met Ziyan. She is very nice and would even share medicinal herbs with me and Sister Na. Is that so? Then I must take some time to meet this interesting little girl you speak of. Qilin smiled slightly, he hadn't expected Ji Yuina and Shuiling to know Ziyan. And just as everyone was chatting and laughing, deep underground at the sky-burning chi refining tower in the Inner Academy of Jianan Academy, a formless giant python suddenly went mad, emitting roaring sounds from its mouth. This formless giant python was none other than the Fallen Heart Flame, ranked 14th on the Strange Fire ranking list. At this moment, the Fallen Heart Flame was stirred by the aura of the Green Lotus Core Flame and was frantically impacting the formation seal of the sky-burning chi refining tower. In the original work, the reason the Fallen Heart Flame was not stirred by the Green Lotus Core Flame was mainly because the Green Lotus Core Flame had already been swallowed and refined by Xiaoyan, and the overflowing aura was not powerful enough. But as for this Green Lotus Core Flame, because it had not been consumed by Queen Medusa, its origin was intact, so naturally, its aura was detected by the Fallen Heart Flame within the sky-burning chi refining tower. The riot of the Fallen Heart Flame immediately threw the elders of the Inner Academy into chaos. Besides the Inner Academy of Jianan Academy, in a secluded bamboo forest in Maple City, which was famous in the Black Corner region, a man wearing an alchemist robe, with a handsome face and an elegant temperament, suddenly stood up, looked into the distance, and a look of wild joy flashed in his eyes. This feeling, it's the fluctuation of a strange fire. Ha 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 ha, heaven is truly helping me. To think I have sensed the fluctuations of 2 strange fires one after another. Chapter 295, Han Feng, who was too clever for his own good. Han Feng had his eyes tightly closed, flicking his fingertips gently. The next second, a wisp of deep blue flame, clear as lake water, leapt out from his fingertips, dancing nimbly. Han Feng himself was carefully utilizing the ability of the strange fires to attract one another, sensing the specific locations of the other 2 strange fires. As Han Feng poured his spirit power into it, the once vague sense of the other 2 strange fires suddenly surged. Found them. As expected, they are in Jianan Academy. One is in the Outer Academy, and the other is in the Inner Academy. That one in the Inner Academy should be the one I once detected. Very well, Jianan Academy hides its secrets quite deeply. The expression on Han Feng's face carried a sneer, and his tone was icy. The reason he established Maple City near Jianan Academy was because when he first arrived in the Black Corner region, he had sensed the aura of a strange fire. However, at that time, his foundation was still weak, and coupled with the powerful influence of Jianan Academy, Han Feng dared not act rashly without absolute certainty. Furthermore, the strange fire aura Han Feng had detected from Jianan Academy had vanished in an instant, so he could not guarantee whether there truly was a strange fire within Jianan Academy. For the sake of this conjecture, Han Feng had specifically built a city near Jianan Academy, taking root in the Black Corner region while constantly monitoring the situation at Jianan Academy. Now, hard work has finally paid off. Even Han Feng had not expected that a mere Jianan Academy would actually contain 2 strange fires at the same time. What an unexpected delight. Han Feng curled the corner of his mouth, a wicked smile appearing on his face. Old man, I am afraid even you did not expect that I, Han Feng, would have such good fortune today. Han Feng muttered to himself, unable to help but think of his teacher, Yao Chen, whom he had betrayed. Yet the more he thought about it, the more hideous the expression on Han Feng's face became. It is all your fault, you damned old thing. If you had taught me the complete flame mantra back then, would I not be soaring to the heavens by now? However, so what if I do not have the complete flame mantra? As long as I can absorb the strange fire, that is enough. A roar like a wild beast emitted from Han Feng's hideous face, but he soon returned to calm. He took a deep breath, a sharp glint flashing in his eyes. Regarding the 2 strange fires at Jianan Academy, with that old immortal Su Jian in the Inner Academy, I fear that strange fire cannot be touched lightly for now, but that one in the Outer Academy. Tilde. Someone, send men to summon the leaders of the Blood Sect, Earth Flame Sect, and 8 Gates. I have important matters to discuss. Compared to the inner academy of Jianan Academy, which was guarded by Su Qian, the outer academy only had Vice Dean Hugon at the peak of the Do Huang level. Clearly, it had become a soft persimmon in Han Feng's eyes. However, to ensure success, Han Feng decided to play it safe and bring more experts to Jianan Academy. Just as Han Feng was taking action, inside the inner academy of Jianan Academy. Due to the riot of the fallen heart flame, Grand Elder Su Qian of the inner academy was also busy beyond measure, leading a group of elders from the academy to reinforce the seal beneath the sky-burning Qi refining tower. He even sent a message for Vice Dean Hugon of the outer academy to bring men over to support them. Currently, with the sky-burning Qi refining tower as the center, a radius of several hundred zhang had already turned into a sea of invisible fire. Of course, Qilin had not sensed the trouble brought upon the inner academy by the appearance of the green lotus core flame. Otherwise, given his personality, he would most likely have helped out. At this moment, laughter and joy flashed within the courtyard where Ji Yuina was staying. Ji Yuina and Xiao Yixian were playing chess, while the others watched from the side, chatting and laughing happily. Qilin did not join in, otherwise, it would simply be bullying others. Just as everyone was chatting with one another, a sound of breaking through the air suddenly came from the horizon. Ripples appeared in the clear sky, and a large group of figures appeared above the courtyard, interrupting those who were having fun. At this moment, a light chuckle also rang out. I did not expect that Vice Dean Hugon and those old things in the academy would not be here. It really was effortless to come by. Jia ha ha ha, it is quite lively here. But, Medicine Emperor, you summoned us just for these few little ones, is that not making a mountain out of a molehill? A middle-aged man wearing a blood-colored robe laughed strangely, his gaze looking down at the women gathered together in the courtyard below, his slightly sharp teeth showing on his face, looking extremely sinister. Han Feng chuckled and then said, for the sake of a strange fire, one cannot be too cautious. After speaking, he turned his head to look at the group of people who had come with him, cupped his fists, and smiled, everyone, rest assured, the promises I have made to you will not be short in the slightest. Upon hearing this, the people behind Han Feng all laughed heartily. One by one, they looked incredibly relaxed, with absolutely no feeling of facing a formidable enemy. Furthermore, there were even people behind Han Feng whose eyes revealed lewdness, and they said to Han Feng unscrupulously, Medicine Emperor, those little beauties below are all stunning, peerless beauties. I am not greedy, I only want one of them. What do you think? After one person finished speaking, the others followed suit. Ha ha ha, they really are a group of little beauties. I want one too. Another person even said wantonly, since you all want women, then that pretty boy belongs to me. Tisk tisk, Madman Third, I did not expect that your hobby still has not changed. That pretty boy is going to be miserable. The crowd discussed among themselves, and Han Feng only smiled slightly, granting every request from the others. To Han Feng, women were merely dispensable things, he only wanted the strange fire. And just when the people behind Han Feng were distributing ownership of the women inside the courtyard, Qilin and the women naturally also noticed this group of uninvited guests. Among the women, Zhu Zuqing, Ji Yu Zuner, Xiao Yixian. They were basically all of a quiet or cold nature. Although they were displeased, they only brewed killing intent in their eyes. Only Huo Wu had a fiery temper, with her anger written on her face. The moment she heard the lewd voices of that bunch of guys in the sky, she was instantly furious, and her aura surged all over her body. A bunch of idiots, you are worthy of plotting against this young lady. With Huo Wu's rage, the green lotus core flame also surged out wildly from her body. In an instant, the cyan flame shot into the sky, causing the surrounding temperature to rise significantly. The rolling heat waves even made the surrounding air feel distorted. In the sky, Han Feng watched the cyan flame shooting into the sky from Huo Wu's body, his eyes suddenly lighting up, and he said pleasantly, so it is the green lotus core flame, ranked 19th on the strange fire ranking list. Subsequently, Han Feng set his gaze on Huo Wu and commented with a faint smile, a 3-star Do Ling. You do have some talent. Pity, the strange fire in your hands is merely a pearl cast into darkness. Little girl, will you obediently hand over the strange fire yourself, or shall I kill you and then take the strange fire from your corpse? Choose for yourself. Han Feng had originally thought that Huo Wu would be sensible and take the initiative to hand over the green lotus core flame in this situation. However, he did not expect that the next second, Huo Wu would directly reach out and point a finger. This lady will hand over your mother's head. If you have the ability, come and snatch it. A bunch of scum, all of you get down here for this lady. Chapter 296, The Abnormality of the Four-Leaf Clover Martial Soul Evolution. Huo Wu's tone was incredibly irritable, her entire body was burning with cyan flames, and her aura appeared quite fierce. Besides this, she also released her spirit. Although they were not on the Duluo continent, the spirit still existed, and the spirit ability acted much like a Do technique, requiring only the use of Qi to be released. After the spirit possession, the aura on Huo Wu's body rose significantly, as if she had unleashed some secret technique. The women looked at Huo Wu before them and all laughed. Shui Ling covered her mouth and laughed. Sister Huo Wu's temper is still the same, still so explosive. Huo Wu lifted her snow-white chin slightly, then said eagerly, I just achieved a breakthrough to Do Ling, and I was worrying that no one was around for me to practice on. Ji Yu Zuner asked curiously, Huo Wu, although you achieved a breakthrough to Do Ling, these guys who suddenly appeared are all experts above the Do Wang level. Even if you want to practice, you shouldn't pick them, right? Although Ji Yu Zuner was not at all worried that Han Feng and his group could threaten them, after all, brother Qilin and that older sister Xiao Yixian were there. But Huo Wu was currently only a 3-star Do Ling. Even with powerful combat strength in her heavenly flame, was that enough to contend with a Do Wang? Seeing Ji Yu Zuner's curious and puzzled expression, Huo Wu put her hands on her hips and laughed. If it were just me alone, then naturally I wouldn't be a match for these people, but... Huo Wu chuckled and looked at Qilin. With Ailin here, he only needs to give me a boost, and ordinary Do Wangs shouldn't be a match for me. A boost? What kind of boost? Ji Yuzuner was still full of confusion as she looked at Qilin. Could it be that brother Qilin had some means to allow a 3-star Doling to possess the strength to contend with a Dowang? Then, Ji Yuzuner saw Qilin smile slightly and reach out his hand. A bud shrouded in a hazy golden radiance emerged from his palm. The moment the golden bud appeared, a golden aura of auspiciousness spread out from within it. Just the aura it emitted made the women around him feel refreshed and happy. Seeing the bud in Qilin's palm, the 4 women, Huo Wu, Zhu Zuqing, Ji Yuina, and Shui Ling, all cast looks of surprise. Ailent brother Qilin, how did your 4-leaf clover martial soul turn into a little bud? What is going on? Qilin shrugged and said, I don't know what's going on either, but as my strength has increased, the 4-leaf clover martial soul has turned into this appearance. However, it doesn't matter, this shouldn't be a bad thing. The 4 women nodded upon hearing this, and Ji Yuina suddenly said, Ailin, could it be that your spirit is about to evolve? As soon as these words were spoken, the other 3 women's eyes lit up. That's right, our spirits have all evolved, but brother Qilin's spirit hasn't changed in the slightest until now. It seems it's because brother Qilin's spirit quality is too high, which is why it hasn't evolved. Now that brother Qilin's strength has increased, the spirit has finally begun to evolve. This explanation was clearly accepted by all the women. Only Xiao Yixian and Ji Yuzuner were somewhat confused and curious. On the side, Qilin faced the women's explanation and smiled, nodding perhaps. Just as Qilin and the others were discussing this, high above in the sky, Hanfeng and the group behind him heard Huo Wu's fierce aura, and they also displayed different expressions. Someone had evil chi permeating their brows and fluctuating killing intent, saying, what an ignorant girl who doesn't know the height of the sky or the depth of the earth, a mere 3-star Doling, yet she dares to speak such wild words. Someone else said sinisterly, what a temperamental little beauty, it's just a shame her brain doesn't work too well. No matter, we'll train her well. I hope she can still be as tough as she is now when the time comes. Han Feng's gaze rested faintly on Huo Wu for a moment, then he said, everyone, I only want the heavenly flame. As for this girl, you may deal with her as you please when the time comes. Upon hearing this, everyone laughed loudly. One of them said, everyone, who will go and capture this ignorant girl? I'll do it. Before the words fell, a burly, bare-chested man flew out from the crowd and then dove toward the courtyard. Seeing this, the people behind Han Feng teased, I didn't expect that guy Xiaohu to beat us did. But he is a 2-star Dowang, dealing with a 3-star Doling should be easy for him, right? However, Han Feng looked at the courtyard below, where Qilin and the others were still laughing and chatting, and he subconsciously frowned. Something is strange. Even if this group of people were stupid, they shouldn't be unable to see the current situation, right? What exactly gave them the confidence to remain calm in the face of so many experts? Could it be that there are experts guarding them in the shadows? Han Feng's gaze swept over Qilin and the others, eventually resting on Qilin and Xiao Yixian. These two. Han Feng stared closely at the two, his eyes narrowing slightly. Only now did he suddenly realize that he could not see through the strength of the 2 people before him. You must know, he was a peak Dohuang. If even he couldn't see through their strength, could they be Dozong? But these 2 people below look so young. Such young Dozong, they would probably be rare existences even in the Central Plains, right? Han Feng's brows furrowed even tighter. Because if the 2 were truly Dozong, then the difficulty of obtaining the heavenly flame on this trip would likely increase infinitely. Thinking of this, Han Feng couldn't help but feel fortunate. Fortunately, he had brought the gold and silver elders on this trip. Even if the 2 below were truly Dozong, his side might still have the strength to fight. Taking a deep breath, Han Feng returned his gaze to Xiaohu. Let's see the situation first. With Xiaohu making a move, he should be able to force the 2 to act. Just as Han Feng was thinking this, Qilin had already given the boost to Huo Wu. Martial Soul Avatar, plus the first spirit ability boost. Martial Soul Avatar, triggering all 1 in 10,000 chances, with all subsequent spirit ability effects multiplied by 5. Adding the first spirit ability effect, Huo Wu's all attribute boost had now reached a terrifying 50 times. Under such a boost, let alone that Huo Wu was only a Doling, even if she were only a great Do Master, she could still contend with a Dowang. After receiving Qilin's boost, Huo Wu felt the terrifying power suddenly surge within her body, and she immediately put her hands on her hips and laughed loudly. Ha 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 ha, I feel like I am full of power now. After finishing, Huo Wu looked at the diving Xiaohu and felt his speed was like a turtle crawling. Slow. Too slow. Huo Wu revealed a row of white teeth like ivory, and her aura surged straight into the heavens. Xiaohu, who was diving down, was the first to feel the change in Huo Wu's aura, and his pupils suddenly shrank. Oh no, this girl was actually, pretend to be a pig to eat the tiger, just now. I've fallen for it. Chapter 297, The Fall of a Dowang. It was not just Xiaohu, Han Feng and the others high in the sky also revealed expressions of horror. Beside Han Feng, an elder dressed in gold and silver robe spoke in a deep voice. The aura on this woman has actually surged from a 3-star Doling to the level of a near-peak Dowang in an instant. Could it be that she was really pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger? That's not right, her strength surged because that man used some technique on her. But what kind of secret technique exists in this world that can allow a 3-star Doling to instantly skyrocket to the peak of a Dowang? This was exactly what filled the gold and silver elders and Han Feng with shock. As for the others, they were only thinking that it was no wonder this woman was so fearless. It turned out her true strength had actually reached the peak of a Dowang. Now, Xiaohu was going to be in big trouble. And just as these thoughts flashed through their minds like lightning, Huo Wu raised her hand and waved it, causing a sound like a thunderclap to echo in the air. A cyan flame whip tore through the air, carving a cyan trajectory in midair. The flame whip was several zhong long, and Huo Wu lashed it fiercely in the direction of Xiaohu. Snap. A massive wave of cyan flames immediately transformed into a ferocious, hissing giant python, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws as it tore toward Shahu. Shahu's pupils constricted sharply. He had already raised his guard to the highest level after noticing the changes in Huowu, so the moment Huowu made her move, he immediately made a judgment. Although his reaction speed was still a step slower compared to Huowu's strike, he still swung his hands in a circle before the cyan giant python arrived, manifesting an earth-brown circular defensive barrier to shroud himself within it. However, Huowu's strength still exceeded his expectations. Although Huowu's chi had only been amplified by Qilin to the level of a peak Dowang, her other attributes absolutely surpassed the level of a peak Dowang. Furthermore, after devouring the green lotus core flame, the chi within her body had already transformed into strange fire chi, which was incomparably refined. What's more, the technique Huowu was cultivating was the wind spirit moon shadow technique improved by Qilin. In terms of chi intensity, even an ordinary Do Huang could not compare to her. Huowu's chi intensity had already reached the Do Huang level, while Shahu was merely a 2-star Do Huang. When the two clashed, who was stronger and who was weaker was clear at a glance. The defense that Shahu had hurriedly deployed was like paper before Huowu's offensive, shattering at a single touch. The moment the defense was broken, Shahu's body was instantly swallowed by the ferocious giant python, and he let out a shrill, miserable wail. Not good, save him. Seeing this, Han Feng immediately shouted. In an instant, several figures flashed out from behind him, with brilliant, multicolored chi whistling as they moved. Some charged toward Huowu, while others attacked the cyan flame giant python, attempting to rescue Shahu. Seeing this, a wild battle intent flashed in Huowu's eyes, and she laughed loudly. All in, you guys help me hold the line. As long as those leaders don't make a move, leave the rest to me. Qilin smiled and said, just fight with peace of mind, those people won't be able to move. Upon hearing this, Huowu's cyan chi surged. Boom. As if by instinct, a pair of cyan flame wings were released from behind Huowu. A flash of novelty appeared in Huowu's eyes. Do Chi wings, this was the hallmark of the Do Wang level. Huowu had originally thought that although her chi intensity had reached the Do Wang level under Qilin's amplification, she would not be able to manifest Do Chi wings like a normal Do Wang. Unexpectedly. This actually gave her an unexpected pleasant surprise. Facing the experts from the Black Corner region attacking her, Huowu tapped her toes, and in the next second, her body soared into the air. Huowu was skilled in using whip techniques. With her as the center, the fire elements in the world suddenly became violent, and the energy of heaven and earth converged, creating a massive vortex of fire attribute energy. A bunch of rabble, watch how this young lady punishes you all. Huowu chuckled. As she swung her long whip violently, the energy vortex gathered from heaven and earth energy was guided by the whip in her hand. In an instant, the cyan flames roared, condensing into an incomparably massive flame storm that whistled toward the Black Corner region experts attacking her. What a terrifying aura, what kind of Do technique is this? To be able to mobilize the energy of heaven and earth, it must at least be a D-rank Do technique. With such strength and the ability to execute a D-rank Do technique, why would this woman be content to stay in the outer academy of Jiangnan Academy? The hearts of the people from the Black Corner region sank. And the attacks directed at Huowu were annihilated the moment they touched the flame storm. However, the power of the flame storm had only been slightly worn down, and it continued to strike toward the Black Corner region experts who had launched the attacks. Quick, combine your efforts to block it. A black-clothed Do Wang shouted, gripping a ghost head blade, and slashed out. A black-red blade like several dozen zhong long shot out from his ghost head blade, hacking toward the flame storm. Following him, the others also reacted in an instant and attacked together. Brilliant Do techniques erupted from their hands, and the energy shockwaves exploded in the sky, then rapidly spread outward with this place as the center. In an instant, the entire outer academy was shaken by this, and countless outer academy students were terrified by this terrifying energy shockwave, feeling a chill run down their spines. However, due to the eruption of the fallen heart flame in the inner academy, the Do Wang level elders of the outer academy had all gone to support the inner academy, leaving the outer academy empty. Thus, even with such an incident, not a single expert from Jiangnan Academy stepped forward. Instead, some Doling level academy instructors, upon noticing Han Feng and the others coming aggressively, had already gathered the students to hide and had requested help from the inner academy at the first opportunity. On the other side, the flame storm collided with the colorful Do techniques. At the moment of impact, a massive mushroom cloud soared into the sky, and the airwaves rolled out like a monstrous wave, spreading in all directions. The 7 Do Wang experts who had attacked Huowu together were sent flying backward after just a single exchange. Because the previous attacks had already weakened the power of the flame storm, they did not suffer heavy injuries, but their disheveled appearance still made Huowu look like a female war god. Apart from the 7 Do Wangs who engaged Huowu, there were 3 other Do Wangs who had moved to rescue Shahu, who had been swallowed by the flame giant python. However, when they broke through the flame giant python, they only found that Shahu had already been burned beyond recognition, his entire body emitting the scent of roasted meat. Clearly, Shahu was dead beyond any hope of recovery, becoming the first Do Wang expert to fall during Han Feng's trip. Now, Han Feng could no longer sit still. Regardless of what the strength of those 2 men and women, who even he could not see through, was, the strange fire was right before his eyes, and he would not give it up no matter what. He looked at the gold and silver elders to the side and shouted, everyone, attack together. Before his voice had even faded, a powerful aura erupted from his body, and a deep blue flame soared into the sky from within him. It was none other than the 15th ranked fire on the strange fire ranking list, the Sea Heart Flame. With the appearance of the Sea Heart Flame, the surrounding temperature rose once again, and the air itself became distorted. The gold and silver elders and the many Do Huangs beside Han Feng saw this and prepared to attack. However, the very moment they moved, an aura that made their very souls tremble descended from the sky, shrouding them. At this moment, it felt as if they were bearing the weight of a towering divine mountain, rendering them unable to move an inch. At this time, a slightly lazy chuckle echoed in their ears. Everyone, do not move. Chapter 298, Hanfeng dies. Is this really an Outer Academy disciple? In an instant, the pupils of Hanfeng and the group of Do Huang experts behind him, including the gold and silver elders, constricted sharply and their bodies suddenly stiffened. This aura, it is definitely not something an ordinary Dozong could possess. This thought flashed through the minds of Hanfeng and the others, and expressions of shock immediately appeared on their faces. They looked at Qilin. Although their bodies were unable to move under the pressure, they still couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. Especially when they thought of the foul language they had just used against Qilin and the ladies, they couldn't help but feel a sense of despair at this moment. If they weren't courting death just now, what were they doing? The expression on Han Feng's face was even more unsightly. Damn it. The heavenly flame is right before my eyes. Just a little bit more and I would have devoured the heavenly flame, evolved the flame mantra, and from then on, soared into the sky and dominated the continent. Heavens, why do you treat me like this? From the moment Qilin spoke, Han Feng already knew that his trip had completely failed, and it was even hard to say whether he could keep his life. Therefore, he was as devastated now as he was excited when he saw the heavenly flame right in front of him earlier. Furthermore, Han Feng blamed everything he was experiencing now on the heavens. In his view, the reason he failed and ended up in this state today was entirely because the heavens were working against him. If that old bastard Yao Chen had been willing to pass the flame mantra to him back then, how would he have united with the Hall of Souls to betray him? And if he had been cultivating the complete version of the flame mantra, and then devoured the sea heart flame and the bone-chilling flame, then with his talent, how could he still be merely at the peak of a Do Huang? The tragedy of his life was all because of that old bastard Yao Chen. Han Feng thought viciously in his heart. However, on the surface, Han Feng forced himself to remain calm and said loudly to Qilin, Senior, I am Han Feng. My master is the pavilion master of the Starfall Pavilion in the Central Plains, Venerable Yao Chen. I ask that Senior please spare me this time for the sake of my master's face. Although Han Feng detested Yao Chen deeply in his heart, in the face of such a life and death crisis, Han Feng was the first to bring up the fallen, Venerable Yao. Behind him, the gold and silver elders and the other Do Huang experts heard this, and while shocked, a glimmer of hope arose in their originally desperate hearts. They didn't expect that the medicine emperor Han Feng, who was famous in the Black Corner region, actually had such a backer. Although they didn't know who the Starfall Pavilion and Yao Chen were, the three words, Venerable Yao, said it all quite clearly. Han Feng's teacher was actually a legendary Do Zun expert. It was truly terrifying. For the sake of Han Feng's teacher, perhaps this mysterious expert would really spare their lives. However, they didn't stop to think for a moment why Han Feng, having such a teacher, was still holed up in the Black Corner region, living in a remote corner. When Qilin heard Han Feng, this filial disciple, actually bringing up Venerable Yao, he inexplicably felt like laughing. The next second, he didn't give Han Feng any chance to continue begging for mercy, he flipped his hand. Slap. A golden palm immediately descended from the sky, and like swatting a mosquito, it instantly slapped Han Feng into a mist of blood. He had originally intended to keep the ungrateful Han Feng for the ladies to practice with, but his behavior just now made even Qilin unable to watch any longer. To think there was such a shameless person in the world. The others witnessed Han Feng, who had been fine just a moment ago, suddenly turned into a mist of blood, without even his soul left behind. Their hearts trembled, and their whole bodies couldn't help but shiver. A middle-aged man wearing a blood-colored robe saw this and immediately couldn't help but shout for mercy, Senior, spare my life. Senior, spare my life. This villain was momentarily blinded by greed, which is why I was bewitched by that bastard Han Feng to come and help him seize the heavenly flame. That's right, Senior, we were all fooled by that bastard Han Feng, which is why we offended Senior and the ladies. Please, Senior, spare us this once. We are willing to become slaves and servants to follow by Senior's side. Once the first person started begging for mercy, there was a second and a third. If they weren't being shrouded by Qilin's aura and unable to move, they would likely already be kneeling before Qilin. Regarding their pleas for mercy, Qilin said nothing, but instead said to the people beside him, does anyone want to go and practice with them? After speaking, Qilin looked at the three ladies, Ji Yuzuner, Shui Ling, and Zhu Qing. With Qilin's amplification, the three of them were fully capable of fighting against those Do Huangs. Furthermore, if Ji Yuzuner activated her clan emblem on top of Qilin's amplification, even an ordinary Dozong would not be her match. Upon hearing Qilin's words, the three of them, despite their calm and quiet nature, still felt a sense of eagerness. Qilin had given gifts to the ladies, and both Shui Ling and Zhu Qing had seen their strength improve to different levels. Now, Shui Ling was a 2-star Do Ling, and Zhu Qing was a 7-star Do Ling. With Qilin's amplification, they were likewise not afraid of Do Huangs. The three ladies nodded, and seeing this, Qilin gave each of them a buff. In an instant, the aura on the three of them surged as well. Ji Yuzuner's aura was the most terrifying, not losing to any Do Huang. Meanwhile, the people from the Black Corner region in the sky were shocked and dumbfounded. They had originally thought that Huo Wu's sudden surge in aura was her pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger. Now it seemed that they were not pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger at all, but had been bestowed some kind of heaven-defying secret technique by that man. However, what kind of secret technique could allow a group of mere Dolings to unleash terrifying combat power comparable to a Do Huang? It was too terrifying, it was simply shocking to the world, unheard of. Qilin smiled slightly, released the pressure on the people from the Black Corner region, and then said to the three ladies, Xiao Shu and go. The three ladies nodded, each manifesting Do Qi wings on their backs, and flashed toward the experts of the Black Corner region. Fight them to the death. The experts of the Black Corner region sensed the pressure on them vanish, but there was no relief on their faces. Instead, they charged at the three ladies. They also understood the current situation, running away was absolutely impossible. But if they could fight to the death and capture one of the women, perhaps there might be a glimmer of hope for survival. In the sky, flowing lights dazzled, and soon they were locked in battle. On the other battlefield, Huowu was like a tiger entering a flock of sheep, charging left and right, wielding her long whip, with fire pythons bearing fangs and brandishing claws, ravaging the sky. If one were swallowed by the giant fire python, an ordinary Dowang would be burned into a charred corpse. Various attacks came from all directions, but they were either dodged by Huowu or scattered by her long whip, causing her no substantial damage. As the tide turned, even though Huowu was besieged by more than a dozen Dowang experts, she remained at ease. Only 2 or 3 experts who had reached the peak of Dowang were able to barely exchange blows with her head-on. Wretched screams constantly rang out in the sky, and each scream was accompanied by a corpse falling from the air. Countless Outer Academy instructors and disciples watching from the shadows all showed expressions of shock. Since when did the Outer Academy have so many experts? Besides, why are there people wearing the Outer Academy disciple uniforms? Is this really an Outer Academy disciple? Chapter 299, the battle concludes. While the instructors and students of the Jianan Academy Outer Academy were in shock, the battle in the sky where Huowu was located was already drawing to a close. A massive cyan flame python dyed the entire sky in a sea of cyan, its intense heat nearly burning and distorting the space around it. Huowu's current overall strength was by no means inferior to an average 4 or 5-star Do Huang. How could a group of uneven Dowangs possibly resist her? Thus, in just a few short minutes, her opponents had been killed or injured, leaving only 2 peak Dowangs still struggling to hold on. The 2 wanted to flee, but discovered that an invisible barrier seemed to have been set up all around them, leaving them with no choice but to fight to the death. By comparison, the situations on the other battlefields were somewhat more intense. Ji Yuzuner was pitted against the Gold and Silver Elders. These 2 were the number 1 and number 2 experts on the Black Corner region's blacklist, both possessing the strength of a peak Do Huang. Furthermore, they were twin brothers, and when joining forces, they could contend with a Dozong. After being amplified by Qilin, Ji Yuzuner's strength had reached the level of a high-tier Do Huang. However, if she did not activate her clan tattoo, the pressure from the Gold and Silver Elders remained immense. After all, the Gold and Silver Elders far surpassed Ji Yuzuner in both combat experience and mastery of Do techniques. Meanwhile, Shuiling and Zhu Zuqing were facing 3 to 4 Do Huangs each. Zhu Zuqing was holding up well, but Shuiling was struggling, lacking combat experience. She quickly fell into a disadvantage under the siege of 3 Do Huangs. After all, before the amplification, her strength had been the weakest among all the women. Fortunately, after finishing her own battle, Huowu quickly relieved a significant amount of pressure from Shuiling and Zhu Zuqing. As they fought, Qilin, Xiao Yixian, and Ji Yuina flew into midair to watch the battle. Just as the battle reached a stalemate, in the inner academy, Vice Dean Hugon, who was helping to reinforce the formation beneath the sky-burning Qi refining tower to suppress the fallen heart flame, suddenly changed his expression. Clearly, he had received an urgent distress signal from the Outer Academy, and the expression on his face immediately became anxious. This was a special secret technique. As long as the distance did not exceed 100 miles, messages could be transmitted through Qi. Upon receiving the distress signal from the Outer Academy and learning that a group of experts above the Dowang level had invaded, Vice Dean Hugon immediately stopped helping to reinforce the formation and shouted, "Grand Elder, the situation has changed. There are external enemies invading the Outer Academy." As soon as these words were spoken, the elders of the Jianan Academy who were reinforcing the formation paused, and even their movements slowed down slightly. This allowed the fallen heart flame to find an opportunity to launch another assault on the formation. In an instant, the ground shook and the mountain swayed, forcing the elders of the Jianan Academy to snap back to reality and focus their attention on reinforcing the formation. Among them, the white-robed old man in the lead said with a heavy expression, "Vice Dean Hugon, you said there are external enemies invading the Outer Academy. What is the situation at the Outer Academy right now?" Vice Dean Hugon heard this and said solemnly, "It is currently unclear, I only received this one message. However, according to the information transmitted back, the people invading the academy should be the Medicine Emperor Hanfeng from the Black Corner region. Besides him, there is also the Blood Sect Master, and the Sect Masters of the Earth Flame Sect and the 8 Gates." Everyone was shocked upon hearing this. These people were all experts who struck terror in the Black Corner region. Why would they suddenly unite to invade the Jianan Academy? Su Jian narrowed his eyes and looked at the fallen heart flame struggling madly beneath the formation of the sky-burning Qi refining tower, a thought flashing through his mind. Could this group of people be here for the strange fire? Otherwise, how could it be such a coincidence that they arrived exactly when the fallen heart flame was rioting? As for the instigator, it should be the Medicine Emperor Hanfeng. In the Black Corner region, only he, a 6th-rank alchemist, had such great appeal, and only he, as an alchemist, would covet the strange fire. However, since he wanted the strange fire, why would he go to the Outer Academy of the Jianan Academy? Connecting this to the sudden riot of the fallen heart flame, Su Jian's eyes flashed. Could it be that a strange fire has also appeared at the Outer Academy? And, the riot of the fallen heart flame is related to the strange fire at the Outer Academy. Clearly, Su Jian had guessed correctly. He quickly made his choice and said in a deep voice, "Vice Dean Hugon, leave this place to us for now. You take a few elders and return to the Outer Academy. You must hold out until we finish reinforcing the formation." Vice Dean Hugon nodded seriously and said, "Leave it to me." After speaking, Vice Dean Hugon immediately selected 2 Do Huang elders and 4 elders at the high-tier Do Huang level, and rushed toward the Outer Academy at top speed. Meanwhile, at the Outer Academy, the battle was still continuing. Ji Yuzuner's eyes flickered with golden flames, and the Golden Emperor Sky-Burning Flame was released by her at this moment. The moment the Golden Emperor Sky-Burning Flame appeared, the deep blue sea heart flame at the spot where Hanfeng died trembled violently, shivering as if a subject were facing a monarch, revealing a posture of submission. Even the green lotus core flame within Huowu's body, which she had already swallowed and refined, trembled out of fear as well. A strange fire. This woman actually possesses a strange fire as well, and this strange fire is capable of making the other two strange fires feel fear. It must be ranked quite high on the strange fire ranking list. Sensing the terrifying temperature and powerful pressure radiating from the Golden Emperor's sky-burning flame, the expressions on the faces of the gold and silver elders became grave. The aura on this woman was clearly only that of a high-tier Do Huang, yet the strength of her chi was not the least bit weaker than a peak Do Huang, and she even possessed a strange fire. This made both of them feel it was incredibly troublesome. Thinking of this, the gold and silver elders could not help but become urgent. Big brother, the silver-robed old man shouted loudly. The two brothers shared a telepathic connection, and the gold-robed old man immediately understood the silver-robed old man's thoughts. Delays lead to complications. They had to capture the woman before them at the fastest speed possible and use her as a hostage, otherwise, they would definitely not escape death today. If they waited any longer, no one could guarantee whether that mysterious man would suddenly make a move. Second brother, use that move. All right. As soon as the words fell, the aura on the gold and silver elders instantly surged, and the energy between heaven and earth suddenly converged toward them, forming a massive energy vortex. In an instant, the wind rose and clouds surged, and the energy tide churned and rolled. Heavenly evil profound ice palm. The gold and silver elders suddenly changed their hand seals and simultaneously struck out with a palm. Monstrous evil chi, like raging waves, surged out from their hands like water breaking through a dam. A combined strike from the two of them would force even a Dozong to retreat 3 steps. However, Ji Yuzuner did not have the slightest intention of retreating. The golden flames in her eyes burned fiercely, and her hands were rapidly forming seals. Emperor Seal skill, Mountain Opening Seal, Sea Overturning Seal, Earth Covering Seal. An Earth rank high tier Emperor Seal skill, Ji Yuzuner consecutively unleashed 3 seals. Under the amplification of the Golden Emperor's sky-burning flame, the 3 golden fire seals shot out from Ji Yuzuner's hands, nearly dyeing the firmament a golden yellow, as if they were going to burn the heavens. Sensing the might upon the 3 seals, the expressions of the gold and silver elders changed abruptly, and a touch of fear surged into their hearts. Not good. Boom. The moment the 3 seals collided with the tide of evil chi, accompanied by a heaven-shaking and earth-shattering explosion, the tide of evil chi was swallowed by a sea of fire in the blink of an eye, and it continued to surge toward the gold and silver elders, engulfing them within their horrified gaze. Inside the sea of fire, the two let out a miserable scream, after which there was no movement, and their auras dissipated. Everyone knew that the gold and silver elders, who had dominated the Black Corner region for decades, had fallen. And with the fall of the gold and silver elders, this great battle soon drew to a close. At the same time, Vice Dean Hugon and the others finally arrived late. Looking at this scene before them, their faces were full of astonishment. Are these really students of the Jianan Academy? How are they even fiercer than me, the Vice Dean of the Outer Academy? Chapter 300, The Fallen Heart Flame Explodes. Vice Dean Hugon and several Jianan Academy elders had just returned to the Outer Academy when they saw 4 young girls suppressing a group of Do Huang experts. Most importantly, they were still wearing the uniforms of Jianan Academy students. Moreover, Vice Dean Hugon recognized the 4 girls. Apart from Shui Ling, a prodigy he had long paid attention to, he had also met Ji Yuzuner, Zhu Zuqing, and Huo Wu not long ago, hoping to take them as disciples. Thinking of this, Vice Dean Hugon couldn't help but wipe the sweat that had suddenly beaded on his forehead. Where did these prodigy monsters pop out from? At such a young age, they were already capable of contending with Do Huang experts. With such talent, they were likely 1 in a million across the entire continent. However, he clearly remembered that the 4 girls' strength was only between Great Do Master and Do Ling. Could it be that they had hidden their true strength before? But what was their purpose in hiding their true strength to join Jianan Academy? Vice Dean Hugon couldn't help but frown, his expression solemn. This matter must be reported to the Grand Elder immediately. Therefore, Vice Dean Hugon immediately used a secret technique to transmit the information from this place. After doing all this, he cast his gaze over again. After looking around, his eyes fell on Qilin, who was standing between Xiao Yixian and Ji Yuina. Qilin noticed the gaze Vice Dean Hugon cast, and immediately nodded at him with a smile. Seeing this, Vice Dean Hugon couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. He could naturally perceive Qilin's special status among the women. Although he couldn't feel Qilin's aura, he could guess that the latter's strength was definitely not simple, and in all likelihood, even more formidable than the 4 girls in the sky. If such an expert held malice towards Jianan Academy, it would definitely be a huge trouble for the academy. Boom. Just at this moment, above the sky. Accompanied by Huo Wu's final strike, the cyan flames killed the last Do Huang expert who had invaded from the Black Corner region. After ending the battle, the 4 girls returned to Qilin's side one after another. Among the 4, Ji Yuzuner was clearly the most relaxed, only panting slightly. Although the battle just now took some effort, it didn't even force her clan tattoo out. Besides Ji Yuzuner, Zhu Zuqing's battle seemed somewhat easier. After her speed was amplified by Qilin, among the Do Huang experts, it could be counted on one hand. As the saying goes, all martial arts under heaven can only be broken by speed. Relying on her movement speed, Zhu Zuqing's opponent couldn't even touch the corner of her clothes, leaving her in an innate invincible position. The battles of Shui Ling and Huo Wu seemed much more intense. Both of them had sustained some injuries during the fight. Of course, these injuries were nothing in front of Qilin. With a wave of his hand, Qilin restored their injuries to their original state. Seeing the battle end, Vice Dean Hugon and the others in the distant sky looked at each other, then tacitly flew towards Qilin and his group. After getting close, they decisively retracted their Do Chi wings and descended from the sky. Vice Dean Hugon looked at Qilin and Xiao Yixian, cupped his hands and said, Vice Dean of Jianan Academy, Vice Dean Hugon, greets the 2 of you. As for the others, Vice Dean Hugon recognized them all. Qilin smiled slightly and said, I am Qilin. Xiao Yixian also smiled and introduced herself. Xiao Yixian. Seeing that neither of them had the airs of an expert, Vice Dean Hugon felt relieved and then smiled, saying, "Your arrival is a great honor. We should have swept the beds to welcome you, but unfortunately, some unexpected events have occurred in the academy, so we have neglected you." Qilin shook his head and smiled. "Vice Dean Hugon, you are being too modest. Instead, it is I and Xiaoyi Xian who have come uninvited. I hope Jianan Academy does not take offense." Hearing this, Vice Dean Hugon hurriedly shook his head. "It is the honor of Jianan Academy that your excellency and this young lady are willing to visit." Seeing this, Qilin did not continue to chat about this matter, but changed the subject and asked, "Vice Dean Hugon, I heard you mention earlier that the academy has had some unexpected events. Could it be that the fallen heart flame in the inner academy has erupted?" Hearing this, Vice Dean Hugon's pupils suddenly constricted. Not only him, but the expressions of the others also changed slightly. Vice Dean Hugon's gaze was fixed on Qilin, but he couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva, indicating his inner tension at this moment. The person in front of him actually knew that an exotic flame existed in the inner academy, and even knew that the inner academy's exotic flame was the fallen heart flame. Could it be that he also came for the fallen heart flame? Countless thoughts flashed through Vice Dean Hugon's mind. He now only wanted to pray that Qilin was not here for the fallen heart flame. After all, whether it was Qilin or Xiaoyi Xian, the feeling they gave him was none other than being even more unfathomable than Grand Elder Su Qian. If they really came for the fallen heart flame, Vice Dean Hugon doubted whether they could protect it with just them. Of course, on the surface, Vice Dean Hugon did not reveal the slightest flaw, shaking his head and laughing. "Your Excellency Qilin is joking. How could my Jianan Academy have such a wondrous object of heaven and earth as an exotic flame?" Vice Dean Hugon felt that his emotional management should have been well disguised. However, just as he finished speaking, he suddenly heard a PFFT sound of suppressed laughter. It turned out to be the girls beside Qilin. Some of the girls smiled without showing their teeth, looking extremely quiet and graceful, while others laughed out loud directly. For example, Huo Wu. Seeing this, Vice Dean Hugon was suddenly a bit confused. Did he say something wrong? At this time, Huo Wu laughed heartily. "Vice Dean Hugon, don't try to cover it up anymore. We don't intend to snatch the academy's exotic flame." The girls trusted Qilin's words implicitly. Since he mentioned the fallen heart flame, there was a high probability that the fallen heart flame existed within Jianan Academy. With their preconceived notions, Vice Dean Hugon's words gave them a feeling of trying to cover up something that only made it more obvious. Moreover, the girls had more or less guessed some of the reasons for the fallen heart flame's eruption. It was highly likely related to Huo Wu absorbing the green lotus core flame. Seeing this, Qilin laughed, and then explained with a smile, "Vice Dean Hugon, just as Huo Wu said, we have no intention of snatching your academy's fallen heart flame. It is just that the eruption of the fallen heart flame has some connection to us, which is why I asked casually. The eruption of the fallen heart flame started because of us, so we naturally will not ignore it." After speaking, Qilin slowly raised his hand, aimed at the distance, and pointed casually. A blinding golden light suddenly erupted from his fingertips, brilliant and dazzling. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from everyone's sight. Having heard Huo Wu and Qilin's previous words, Vice Dean Hugon was first stunned, his face revealing a bit of embarrassment at being exposed. And when he finished listening, and then witnessed Qilin's action with his own eyes, his face once again revealed a look of shock. What does Qilin mean by this? Could it be that with this casual point, he can suppress the fallen heart flame tens of miles away? How is this possible? Even a Dozun expert couldn't do this, right? Meanwhile, Inner Academy. Above the sky-burning Qi refining tower, a golden light suddenly descended from the sky. In the instant before everyone could react, it shot into the formation. Boom. Accompanied by a heaven-shaking roar, the invisible fire python transformed by the fallen heart flame was instantly pierced by the golden light and exploded instantly, leaving only a faint invisible flame floating underground. Witnessing this scene, including Grand Elder Su Qian, all the Jianan Academy elders looked at each other in dismay. What's going on? Why did the fallen heart flame suddenly explode? Chapter 301, Vice Dean Hugon's invitation, visiting Jianan Academy. Most importantly, after the fallen heart flame exploded, only its consciousness was extinguished, the origin fire seed remained undamaged. For Jianan Academy, this was actually a great piece of good news. Because the fallen heart flame, with its consciousness extinguished, was like a newborn infant, it would no longer riot at every turn and assault the formation beneath the sky-burning Qi refining tower as it had before. If Jianan Academy nurtured it properly, there might truly be a chance to cultivate this fallen heart flame into a legacy fire. Su Qian and the others quickly discovered this as well, their faces revealing expressions of wild joy. The elders gathered around, their faces full of surprise and delight. Grand Elder, that golden radiance just now, which senior made a move? Could it be that the dean, his old self, has returned? Su Qian shook his head, though a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. It wasn't the dean who made a move, but I think I know who did. He thought of the secret message he had received from Vice Dean Hugon not long ago, which was why he had this guess. Regardless of who made a move, they have helped our Jianan Academy solve a major problem. Indeed, the fallen heart flame, which even we couldn't handle together, was resolved by them with a casual wave. Could it be that a senior at the Dozun realm made a move? The elders chimed in one after another. Listening to their comments, Su Qian handed the cleanup work over to them and hurried toward the outer academy alone. Meanwhile, after casually helping Jianan Academy suppress the fallen heart flame, Qilin smiled at Vice Dean Hugon and the others. Vice Dean Hugon, the problem with your academy's fallen heart flame has been resolved by me. Oh. Hearing Qilin admit it personally, Vice Dean Hugon was stunned again, then immediately reacted, thanking Qilin. Thank you for your trouble, Your Excellency Qilin. Qilin waved his hand. No problem, it was just a small effort. After speaking, he chuckled and teased. In this way, Vice Dean Hugon surely won't suspect us of coveting your academy's fallen heart flame anymore. Vice Dean Hugon and the other elders listened to Qilin's teasing, their faces immediately revealing sheepish smiles. It was truly as judging a gentleman by the measure of a villain. At this moment, Huowu suddenly spoke up. "Ah Lin, there is still a strange fire in the sky." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone subconsciously looked toward the sky. They saw a mass of deep blue flames floating quietly in midair. It was exactly the sea heart flame left behind after Han Feng's death. Almost forgot about it. Qilin glanced at the sea heart flame and made a casual grasping motion. The next second, in the shocked eyes of Vice Dean Hugon and the others, the sea heart flame was directly taken away by Qilin. Of course, Qilin had no intention of refining the sea heart flame, he simply stored it into his blessed land. Throughout the entire process, this strange fire, ranked 15th on the strange fire ranking list, did not show the slightest bit of resistance. Gulp tilde. Seeing Qilin easily put away the sea heart flame, Vice Dean Hugon and the others couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. With such unfathomable means, it was no wonder Qilin didn't look down upon the fallen heart flame. After retrieving the sea heart flame, Qilin smiled and said to Vice Dean Hugon and the others, "Is there anything else, everyone?" This courtyard was Ji Yuina's residence. Although it was an exquisite student residence, it was a bit small in size. How could it accommodate such a large group of people? Moreover, including this courtyard, it was all Jiannan Academy's territory. Qilin and the others were considered guests. How could there be a situation where a guest invites the host in the host's home? Upon hearing this, Vice Dean Hugon glanced at the courtyard, then immediately cupped his hands and said, "Nothing, but since a personage like your excellency has condescended to visit our Jiannan Academy, if we fail to host you properly and it becomes known to outsiders, I fear we will be ridiculed." After speaking, Vice Dean Hugon solemnly said, "I, Vice Dean Hugon, on behalf of Jiannan Academy, sincerely invite your excellency Qilin and all the young friends to move to Tianqing Pavilion so that we may fulfill our duties as hosts." Seeing that Vice Dean Hugon's words were sincere, Qilin smiled lightly and said, "Since Vice Dean Hugon invites us so sincerely, how could we have any reason to refuse?" Vice Dean Hugon was overjoyed upon hearing this. As the Vice Dean of Jiannan Academy, he was naturally happy to see the academy build connections with a powerhouse like Qilin. The other elders were also overjoyed, their thoughts not much different from Vice Dean Hugon's. After all, judging by the strength Qilin had displayed, he was most likely a legendary Dozun powerhouse. Perhaps even within the Dozun realm, he could be considered a powerhouse. To be able to befriend such a powerhouse, even if it was just sharing a meal or exchanging a few words, could be considered a supreme honor for them. If they could receive a few words of guidance from him, it would be an opportunity that only comes once in a century. "Your Excellency Qilin, young friends, please this way," Vice Dean Hugon said with a polite gesture. Subsequently, Qilin and the young women were led by Vice Dean Hugon toward Tianqing Pavilion. According to Vice Dean Hugon's introduction, Tianqing Pavilion was only opened when hosting the most distinguished guests at Jiannan Academy. It was rumored that during the founding of Jiannan Academy, the dean had once hosted more than one Dozun powerhouse in this Tianqing Pavilion. However, this matter was just a rumor, and even Vice Dean Hugon found it difficult to judge its authenticity. Qilin did acknowledge this legacy. After all, given Meng Tianqi's status and strength, it was perfectly normal for him to have a few friends in the Dozun realm. Along the way, although Vice Dean Hugon's attitude was respectful, he was not as stiff as the other elders. He sighed to Ji Yuzuner and the others. "I had previously thought about taking you young ladies as disciples, but I didn't expect that your true strength would be so terrifying. I fear that even I might not be a match for you young ladies." But as soon as he finished speaking, the expression on his face suddenly froze. Because in his perception, the aura on Ji Yuzuner, Zhu Zuqing, and the other two women suddenly weakened, becoming strength around the Douling realm. Although it was still much stronger than when he first met them, compared to a Do Huang, it was clearly a world of difference. What was going on? Vice Dean Hugon was shocked, and the other elders of Jiannan Academy also felt it was unbelievable. Hell, how did the strength of these four people suddenly regress so much? Could it be that they all hid their strength at the same time again? However, they were all sensible enough not to continue asking. On the way, their group attracted the attention of many academy instructors and students, who cast curious gazes one after another. They had clearly recognized the identities of Vice Dean Hugon and the others. And it wasn't just Vice Dean Hugon. Although Ji Yuina and Shui Ling had only joined the academy for a few months and kept a low profile after entering, they were also prominent figures in the outer academy and were recognized by many students. Associating this with the great battle that had erupted in the outer academy not long ago, these people couldn't help but imagine many things in their minds. Soon, Vice Dean Hugon led everyone to Tianqing Pavilion. Tianqing Pavilion was located in a secluded bamboo forest. Although not luxurious, it looked very elegant and grand. Just as Qilin and the others were preparing to enter Tianqing Pavilion, in the distant sky, a white-robed figure flew over in a hurry and stopped in front of Tianqing Pavilion. The person who arrived was none other than the inner academy grand elder, Su Qian. After Vice Dean Hugon repeatedly sent messages through secret techniques that Qilin's strength was not simple, Su Qian naturally did not dare to be the slightest bit negligent. Chapter 302, First Meeting with Xian. After rushing to Tianqing Pavilion and ascending to the third floor, Su Qian recognized the Your Excellency Qilin that Vice Dean Hugon had spoken of at a single glance. Qilin sat amidst the women, like a jade tree of orchids rooted in a bed of flowers. Although he was sitting there in an unremarkable manner with a hint of laziness in his expression, he still gave Su Qian a feeling of being peerless in the world. As the Grand Elder of the Jiannan Academy Inner Academy, Su Qian had seen countless prodigies over the years, yet in front of Qilin, those prodigies were like fireflies compared to the bright moon, appearing dull and lusterless. Upon seeing Su Qian approach, Vice Dean Hugon immediately stood up and introduced him to Qilin. "Your Excellency Qilin, this is our Jiannan Academy Inner Academy Grand Elder, Su Qian." Qilin looked at the newcomer and nodded slightly. Vice Dean Hugon also stepped forward to introduce Qilin and the women to Su Qian. Hearing this, Su Qian stepped forward and exclaimed. I never expected that I, Su Qian, would have the honor of meeting such prodigies today. Qilin smiled slightly. Elder Su Qian, you are too kind. Afterward, everyone sat down again and began to chat freely in Tianqing Pavilion. Su Qian and Vice Dean Hugon also learned the reason for Qilin and his group's appearance here, and then they looked at Ji Yuina, who had revealed her true strength in the aura of a dozong, with a look of helpless amusement flashing in their eyes. I never expected that young Miss Ji Yuina, a dignified dozong, would think so highly of our Jiannan Academy as to even hide her strength to come to Jiannan Academy to study. The women chuckled in low voices upon hearing this, as they had all heard from Shuiling that it was Ji Yuina who had proposed wanting to join Jiannan Academy to study. Ji Yuina's cold face did not show much emotional fluctuation. She only said in a calm tone, learning knows no bounds. Furthermore, I have indeed learned quite a lot at Jiannan Academy and have even made a friend. Upon hearing this, a look of surprise flashed in Vice Dean Hugan's eyes. This was a real dozong. Her standards must be very high. Among the students of Jiannan Academy, who could catch her eye? Could it be that brat Hu Jia? Su Qian also asked curiously, I wonder who young Miss Ji Yuina is referring to. Ji Yuina looked at Su Qian and said, you are the Grand Elder of the Inner Academy, so you should know her. Her name is Ziyan, and she is the #1 on the Inner Academy's strong ranking. As soon as these words were spoken, a look of realization appeared on Su Qian's face. So the friend young Miss Ji Yuina mentioned is actually that girl Ziyan. Ji Yuina nodded. Vice Dean Hugon, who was on the side, clapped his hands, his expression looking slightly excited. Isn't this a coincidence? That girl Ziyan was originally brought into Jiannan Academy by Grand Elder Su Qian from the outside, and he has always regarded her as his own daughter. Everyone was slightly surprised to hear this. They did not expect that Su Qian and Ziyan had such a relationship. Since Qilin knew the plot, he was naturally not surprised. A slight smile also appeared on Su Qian's face. For that girl Ziyan to be able to know these friends might be an opportunity for her, and perhaps she could even find her own clan through Qilin and the others. After all, Ji Yuina, Qilin, and the others possessed such talent and strength, their backgrounds must not be simple, and perhaps they could discern what kind of species Ziyan's true form was. Afterward, during the chat, because of the connection through Ziyan, the atmosphere was naturally even more harmonious. During the conversation, Qilin did not put on any airs and even answered many cultivation problems for Su Qian and the others. Among them, Vice Dean Hugon gained the most. Because Vice Dean Hugan's strength was already at the peak of Do Huang, only one step away from Dozong. However, at this realm, besides taking medicinal pills or using heaven and earth treasure to forcefully break through the shackles, one could only rely on comprehension ability to comprehend the power of space and break through to Dozong naturally. And with Qilin's strength, his mastery of space was something that even ordinary half-saints might not be able to compare to. Therefore, just by giving Vice Dean Hugon a few pointers, he actually allowed him to comprehend a trace of the power of space. Although he did not break through to Dozong on the spot, based on Vice Dean Hugan's accumulation, he would break through within 3 to 5 months. Because of this reason, not only was Vice Dean Hugon extremely excited, but Su Qian was also equally excited. Because as long as Vice Dean Hugon broke through, Jiannan Academy would be able to add another Dozong. When the discussion ended, dishes with mouth-watering aromas were served. The ingredients used for these dishes were either meat from 4th order or even 5th order demonic beasts, or some heaven and earth treasure. In order to entertain Qilin and the others, Vice Dean Hugon had put in a lot of effort. Although he knew that with Qilin and his group's status and strength, they might not think much of these things, at the very least, they had to express their attitude. It was a banquet where both host and guests were happy. After the banquet ended, Vice Dean Hugon personally arranged accommodation for Qilin and his group. And just after Vice Dean Hugon left, not long after, a voice suddenly came from afar. Sister Ji Yuina, little Shui Ling. A crisp voice suddenly came from the distant sky. Everyone looked up and saw a little girl who looked 12 or 13 years old flying over from afar. The little girl had purple hair, delicate features, clear eyes, and was wearing a wide white robe, looking somewhat cute and naive. Ji Yuina looked at the newcomer, a faint smile appearing on her cheek. Shui Ling's face carried a hint of pleasant surprise. Why is Ziyan here? After saying this, she looked at Qilin and the other women, and introduced with a smile, she is Ziyan. While speaking, Ziyan had already landed from the sky, but when she saw Qilin and the rest of the women, a look of confusion flashed in her eyes. Who are these people? This was the first time Ziyan had seen so many people appear besides Sister Ji Yuina. Ziyan, you're here. Ji Yuina looked at Ziyan and smiled lightly. In fact, at the very beginning, Ziyan did not want to call Ji Yuina sister. After all, she was used to being the big sister in the Inner Academy. But unfortunately, she could not beat Ji Yuina, and Ji Yuina also had a feeling that made her feel close, plus Ji Yuina fed her a lot of delicious food. That was why Ziyan was willing to call Ji Yuina sister. Sister Ji Yuina, who are these people? Ziyan could see that these people in front of her were very close to Ji Yuina, so she asked curiously. However, Ziyan's gaze lingered more on Qilin and Xiao Yixian. The two of them had refined an unknown number of medicinal pills not long ago, so a faint medicinal fragrance naturally lingered on their bodies. These could not be hidden from Ziyan's little nose. The Void Ancient Dragon clan also had treasure-seeking talent, and this talent was particularly strongly reflected in Qilin. After Ziyan asked, Ji Yuina immediately introduced Qilin and the women to her. During her introduction, Ziyan's 2 eyes were sparkling, and she took a few extra looks at Qilin. She could feel that the relationship between Qilin and Sister Ji Yuina seemed very unusual. Because the usually cold Sister Ji Yuina's eyes were as gentle as if they could overflow with water when introducing Qilin. Chapter 303, The Pampering of the Ladies, Ziyan's Transformation.